also have some processing challenges. Due to its unique composition, the processing of the camel milk products need to be tailored to this specific food matrix, and we need to overcome this challenge in proposing new ways to produce and processing this product. To try to tailor and understand the food processing, we need to make a commitment between all these drivers. That would be the natural system, the human systems, and the food systems. On the natural system, human systems, we have the breeders that are here with us on this conference, bringing and changing the knowledge with us on the side of the scientists. And my goal would be to be working on this part of the food production value chain. That would be on the formulation and processing of the camel milk. The first challenge that we have when we are talking about the camel milk products will be the definition of the camel milk. Because when you go to the official regulations, resolutions saying what's milk, all of them, they are talking about the cow milk. And we know, all of us, that the camel milk has a specific and unique composition, and that cannot be compared to the cow milk. Here we have a table of the composition of the cow milk and camel milk. And also, besides the comparison that always is doing with the cow milk, we have the animal itself, that we have different animals, different camels, and each one of them have a special composition, so we need to tailor the processing and the products that they are doing for each one of them. To understand what are the strengths, the opportunities, the weakness, and the threats that we have on the animal production, especially on the camel milk processing, we can start with the positive points. It would be the strengths. We know that the camel milk has nutritional properties that are unique. On the opportunities, there's a growing demand for health foods. And the camel milk has a unique composition that can be classified also as a superfood. So there's some appeal on the marketing side. And on this kind of composition, they can put the camel milk aside on the quinoa, for example. But we have some threats, the barriers that I just mentioned, by the definition of what is the camel milk. And the weakness, mainly what we're going to be exploring today, that will be the processing challenges. Due to its unique protein composition that my colleague Alfredo will be exploring deeper later, it's hard to coagulate the camel milk and making it challenging to produce the derivative products like the cheese, the yogurt, and the other dairy products. To have an idea what kind of products we can do or prepare or process with the camel milk, there's a summarized overview of the products that we can see. Here we have on this figure around 50 food products that are delivered from the camel milk. We can categorize them on cheese, butter, whey products, cream products, sour milk products, besides the milk itself. So it's a rich food matrix that can be delivering more than 50 food products to go to the market. When we talk about the food products, we need to start with the most important one, that would be the camel milk itself. And we need to try to conserve it as long as we can. The way to do that is during the treatments, the conservation treatments. Mainly it would be the pasteurization process. There's a thermal treatment. Here we have the flow chart of the process of the pasteurization from liquid milk. We started the process with the filtration and clarification of the camel milk. Then we have the standardization, where we will set if you are doing a whole milk or a cream milk. So we need to tailor the fat content. Then we have the pasteurization. But on this part, we can also have the sterilization process, tindalization, thermalization, and other kind of thermal treatments. After that, we have the cooling. We can do some fortifications depending on what kind of products we are doing later. We always need to keep in mind that the camel milk has a high variability on its composition. So when we do some food products derived from camel milk, you have some unwanted changes that can happen, like the lactose formulation, pH decrease. We can denaturate the cereal protein, we can have coagulate the caseins, and so on. But again, the changes will be depending on the camel milk composition itself. The consequence mainly will be in such levels, higher or lower, that you can observe would be the color change, the viscosity change, flavor change, decrease on nutritional values. On some cases, you can face also the regrowth of bacteria, even when after the treatments. But something that's challenging for us would be the decrease on coagulation ability. That's an important food technology parameter to be doing the process later. It's already stated by the literature that you can do the pasteurization from camel milk. And this is already stated that the camel milk can be pasteurized using same technology, that would be head treatment at 72 degrees during 15 seconds, like we do for the bovine milk. But at the same time, it's already well known that you cannot use the same method to determine pasteurization efficiency that we use for bovine milk. So you need to look for one alternative on this way. And the treatment efficiency indicators that will be for the bovine milk could be alkaline phosphatase, has some residual activity on the camel milk. So the alternative so far would be to use the gamma-glutamyl transferase and the largopyridase. This point of the treatment efficiency indicators are a hot point for the research nowadays, and researchers are trying to explore and to search for these parameters. And on this slide also, when we talk about the camel milk pasteurization, that's already stated at 72 degrees during 50 seconds. Each country is adopted one different regulations and accept one different type of parameters. Like the Emirates, for example, if we were saying 72 degrees, they adopted as regulations the temperature of 74 degrees. And in Emirates, they are stating 3 different types of shelf life. One author said that their milk treated like that can last for 5 days. Some countries are also stated that the camel milk pasteurized can reach 15 days, and a third one saying that cannot last longer than 10 days. Anyway, all of the authors there have a consensus saying that we have lower taste scores, texture, and change on over-acceptability of the camel milk after the thermal treatments. And what we are doing at ASARI, we are looking for some innovative conservation methods. We still don't have the results to share with you, but we'll be happy to share when we have it done. The ways to follow on this case will be the use of emerging technologies for the processing. Some technology that you can be using will be the ultraviolet technology, also the high pressure technology, and the membrane technology that will be non-thermal technology that could reduce the impact that you have the thermal temperatures that are using on pasteurization. Another way to try to overcome this limitation would be the use of the milk additives. The FDA already recognized the use, and have the permission for the use of the additives, food additives, natural additives on the camel milk. And what we are doing or searching would be how to stabilize the caseins. That would be how we can stabilize and promote the coagulation. Some stabilizers already can find on the market, and will be mainly gelatin, pectins, alginates, and others. But for the camel milk, we still need to know what are the GRAS lists for these additives. The GRAS would be the generally recognized as safe additives that could be used on the camel milk. Here we have some success cases of liquid camel pasteurized milk that can find on the market already. All of them already sold and some different brands. I didn't choose anyone specific. I just look on Google to take the image. But what you can see on this figure is all of them, they're using plastic bottles. So another way to overcome the limitation of the food conservation, the camel milk conservation, would be the packaging. So far, you have the plastic bottles, mainly the high-density polyethylene and the polyethylene terephthalate. Sometimes you can have the cartons, that would be the Tetra Pak or gable top cartons. Glass bottles are using, mainly when the distribution is not so far. And we can have also the pouches. The research on this field will be to use this smart packaging, mainly the both types of the active and intelligent packaging. The active packaging to incorporate materials that can be delivered to the milk and extend shelf life and stability during the conservation. And the intelligent packaging, that will be the embedded sensors are indicators that monitor and display the quality of the milk, such as freshness, and it will be something good for have around the breeders, since you don't have the cold chain close to them. The first product that we can think that we can produce the derived from the camel milk after the pasteurization process would be the powder milk. And it's important that we talk about both of them, the pasteurized liquid milk and the powder milk, because the powder milk will be one ingredient that we'll be using on the other products, the cheese, the yogurt, the kefir, and so on. So we need to see how it works for the powder milk. Here's the process for the powder milk. After the pasteurization, we have the evaporation, homogenization, spray drying, cooling. We have the process of sieving, agglomeration, packaging, and then we can use this powder milk for our processing. We already have some powder milk, camel milk on the market, and their composition is close to the skim bovine milk. You have some brands, different brands. They all are high-quality camel milk brands. All of them, they are spray dried. That's the most frequently commercial technology that you use to reduce the water activity and have the powder milk. But you need to consider that you have the heat sensitivity of the camel milk. So the proteins, particularly the casein, are affected. So to make the camel milk liquid again from the powder milk, we have this challenge. We can also lyse it properly again. And also during the processing, we have the foaming tendency. During the processing itself, we have the foam, so it reduces the efficiency of the processing. What scientists are doing, they are trying to enrich the food formulation, the milk composition, with some natural extracts to avoid the oxidants parameters, and also to try to reduce the foaming ability so we can do a better drying process. Also, we can try to change the way that we do this drying. So far, we are doing with spray drying. Maybe we can do it with the freeze drying. So on the ways that research are doing conducive on this powder milk could be optimization of dry parameters and encapsulation of antioxidants. Saying about the camel milk, the liquid one, and having the powder milk, then we can move for the other products. I choose to talk about the cheese today, and I think that was a good choice because in the last 2 days I was talking with breeders, with other scientists, and all of them, when I talk that I'm doing food technology, they mentioned cheese. So we are talking about cheese today. For the processing of cheese, we start the process as on the same way that we started the treatments for the other milk products, that will be after pasteurization, then we move for the other products. In this case, we need to add the starter culture, the René addition, then we have the coagulation process, the cutting from the curds, cookings, tiring, then we have the draining of the whey. We have the curd handling, the molding, and the pressing. Sometimes you can have the salting process. The camel milk, sometimes it's avoid this process because the milk is already have a residual self-taste. And we have the aging, depending of the cheese that we're producing. And the last one would be the packaging. To produce the camel cheese, we have the ingredients, the camel milk, of course. It's important that we need to have the René, that's the enzyme that will be doing the coagulation. These will be one research parameter that are doing also, that's to change this René to camel René or camel chemosine. Then we need to add calcium chloride to improve the coagulation ability of this camel milk. We need to add the salt, both the taste and also for the conservation process. Then the starter culture, and sometimes you can add lactase, especially because with the camel milk we can produce low lactose or lactose-free cheese, citric acid to add on the coagulation process, and some herbs and spices depending on the type of the cheese that we're aiming to produce. Here we have a figure showing the camel cheese and the bovine cheese that was coagulated with the chemosine and citric acid. We can compare both. We see that the bovine cheese with both conditions, they have good results, and we can see that looks like cheese. But for the camel cheese with the same concentrations and the same parameters, we still don't have the coagulation properly done. This happens because of the milk composition, of course, and because we are also importing the camel, the cheese processing from the bovine milk is not tailored. It's a process that's not tailored yet for the camel milk, and all of these parameters will affect how we calculate the cheese and produce the cheese itself. The possible solutions from this challenge would be three that we can find mainly in the literature. The first one would be the use of chemical chemosin. That so far we cannot find that on Morocco, but in Dubai, Emirates, we can find it. Also the use of plant strategies to substitute the commercial rennet. A second option would be the cheese making with blends of camel and cow milk. So it would be not 100% camel milk cheese, but can have a cheese made of this food mattress. And the third solution would be the use of microbial-transglutaminase. The same case was reported that it could be successfully applied to texture improvement and also to the cheese production. In any case, mostly all the literature and the societies that are producing cheese from camel, they are doing the cheddar type. They are still stuck to do the hard cheese due to coagulation process and aging that will have the microbial grow. Here we have a second image showing the comparison between the camel milk and bovine milk when we add the chemosin, the chloric acid, and the acid acid. During the time, what happens on the coagulation process. And we can see that for the same parameters, like here, for the camel milk with the chemosin, we don't have a 100% coagulation, while on the bovine milk, we already have some the coagulation done. There's many literature data that they're producing on the list 2, 3, and 4 years. So the research on the camel cheese is still recently. We have some data from the years 1980, 99, but most of them, the important research that was done on the last 4 years. This first research was done comparing the pasteurized milk-based camel cheese and trying to look for a solution for the calf rennet, that would be the camel rennet, and also the microbial-transglutaminase, and have some good promising results. As I said, on the last 4 years is when we can focus more, we see more research about the publications on how we can produce camel cheese. Some of them working with the blend cheese with 2 kinds of milk sources, and some of them are 100% camel cheese. Here we have the results from a hedonic scale. On the top, we have the parameters that was used for this hedonic scale from 0.1 to 9. This is not our study, but reflects very well the kind of results that we have with the cheese that we produce at ASARI. That we can see this is still, it's not a hard cheese, it still is like a paste. And these results will show that for the chemosin coagulation, comparing the camel cheese and the bovine cheese, we are struggle on the part of the chewiness, and also on the taste, on the flavor, because we have a salty taste on the camel cheese that we cannot see on the bovine cheese, and the sourness taste that we can see on the bovine cheese and there's not present on the camel cheese. For the softness taste, is easy to understand why, because of the original taste of the camel milk. So we have a soft taste on the beginning that will be transferred to the cheese at the end. And the sourness, we see that the bovine cheese, it develops the sourness taste that is typical from the cheese, and we are not able to do that on the camel milk. The topic of research on the camel cheese making is important, and you can see some research around the world doing research on how to produce camel cheese due to the unique composition that we have, nutritional composition that we have for this food mattress, and also aiming to produce lactose-free cheese. Here, I brought this phrase because it was said by someone from Embrapa, that's in Brazil, a Brazilian society dedicated to research. And it's curious because we don't have camels in Brazil. So within the societies, the researchers at this kind of societies, they are focusing on how to produce camel cheese, even if we don't have the animals there. And what these studies they were trying to do was the fortification. Also to improve the, how to correct the challenge that we have on the camel milk from the origin. And what they stated that we could do the fortification with milk powder to enhance the protein content and have a better cheese yield. Also to add some milk compounds, mainly from bovine milk, but you still need to do this kind of studies using the isolated camel milk compounds. Also to use it from the plant extracts. Mainly it was done the studies with the sweet potato powder, and that had good results. The add of vitamins and minerals in the case that we are doing some thermal treatments, also to improve the composition of the camel milk mattress and to try to produce the cheese at the end of the process. Also the plant-based additives to improve the texture mainly, but also the color and nutritional parameters. Here we have a cheese that was produced adding some plant extracts. We see that we can shape it already, the 100% camel cheese. And here we have a blended with the bovine milk and the camel milk to produce the cheese. You can see the difference between both, that the blend we have a better results in the better appearance of the cheese. The ways to go on the research considering the cheese is the increased protein content from non-dairy sources. That could be a solution. So we can still attest it to be 100 camel milk, but with the benefits from the plant extracts or other kind of protein that could be a source for us. As take-home message, I just want to highlight the camel milk is available and yet underutilized resource that offers a unique composition, nutritional benefits that are really great. And we need to tailor the process for this special mattress. We cannot import from the bovine milk and try to do the same and have the same results from the camel milk. And the research directions on this way would be the innovative processing techniques, try to use no-thermal processing techniques on the camel milk to keep its properties and be able to produce the derived products like cheese, yogurt, and so on. Also the treatment indicators that you cannot use the sulfate, so I need to look for some kind of indicators to say to us that we have the safe products at the end of the chain. Also to develop new products, 100% camel milk without the blends, and to use these special extracts that can have from the camel milk. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Poliana, for this excellent start of the day and for respecting the time. So we have room for some questions. Okay, we have one.
Bonjour à tous, je vous remercie infiniment pour cette présentation très claire. Alors ma question c'est à propos du processus de fabrication du fromage. On a bien sûr la possibilité de changer beaucoup de paramètres afin d'optimiser le rendement ou bien la qualité organoleptique ou bien n'importe quel résultat qu'on cherche, mais est-ce que peut-être on peut chercher des bactéries qui peuvent s'adapter plus à la fermentation du lait? Est-ce qu'il y a des recherches vraiment qui sont avancées dans ce sens? Merci.
Parmi les recherches qu'on peut faire concernant les laits de chamel, pour faire les fromages, on peut avoir la partie thermique, les temps de température de traitement, on peut utiliser les traitements non thermiques pour essayer de conserver les paramètres de la composition du lait. Mais un autre voie qu'on peut exploiter, c'est aussi la composition en termes de la partie microbienne. On peut faire les extraits, utiliser les souches qui viennent de lait bovin, mais l'adéquat, c'est qu'on trouve des bactéries lactiques dérivées, isolées, font de lait de chamel. Il n'y a pas vraiment un consensus encore scientifique pour dire qu'on peut faire les ferments à partir de ça, mais ça peut être une troisième voie dans la recherche concernant le lait de chamel. Produire les ferments à partir de lait de chamel.
Any other questions? So, thank you, Poliana. Clap, please. Okay, we move to Alfredo Pauciulli. Okay, he will present for us a keynote presentation about shaping tomorrow the importance of camel protein, milk protein variant for camel breeding and human nutrition. Alfredo, the floor is yours.
Yes, okay. So Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers to invite me in this wonderful conference. And I really appreciated all the evening that we had and all these days. Thank you very much. Today I'll be discussing the importance of milk protein variants in camel breeding and how they can shape the future of human nutrition and the impact that can have on health, but also the technological impact that they're potentially changing the market, and of course, the potential impact on future animal breeding. Yeah, I need to point there. Okay. The outline of my presentation is in this slide. We will go through several steps, starting from an overview of camel milk production and its importance worldwide. Then we will analyze a critical review of the properties of camel milk. And then I will go to the main point of my presentation. So why are genetic variants of milk protein so important? And we will move slowly to the end, giving an overview about the selective breeding strategies, and then finally the conclusion. Camel milk supports the survival of millions of people in arid and semi-arid of the world. And in this graph, we can see basically the distribution. Okay. The distribution actually of the camel milk producer over the world. And generally what we can see is that in the last 30 years, there was a slight increase of the production, mainly due to the increasing number of camel heads, more than a better producer camels. So for sure, the knowledge acquired by scientists and transferred to the at the farm level, enhancing the feeding, for example, the health, the reproduction, and so on. This gave an input to improve the milk production. But according to my opinion, this is just the top of the iceberg and linked to an increasing number of camel population rather than to a real improvement of animal productivity. Down here, instead, we can see the details of the country which have a higher production of raw milk, camel milk. Actually, if we match this data with the Zero Hunger Sustainable Development Goals, and we consider the index prevalence of a severe food insecurity, well, then we realize that despite the increase of camel milk production over the years, this important food for human probably does not reach enough the people, so that the feeling of insecurity has the same trend of the that of the camel milk production. I took only the three countries which actually are the best producer from this point of view. A similar situation if we analyze another index belonging to SDG1, where unfortunately for some countries like Somalia, we have only spot data, and also for Kenya, with a higher percentage of population above the poverty lines. And this situation instead in Pakistan is much better, which over the last 20 years, this poverty actually was down. Why I did mention only these two sustainable development goals? Well, because there is a quantitative evidence that milking animals ownership of improvement in production can significantly improve and contribute to SDG 1 and 2, both at household and community level. Although this study, it's mainly focused on dairy cows, in my opinion, it represents a model to adapt where the main animal resources is represented by camel and dromedaries. Many are the findings of course, this report, and dairy provides a major pathway out of poverty by making the necessity of the life accessible and affordable. Dairy contributes a regular source of income and put farmers in a better position to feed their families, send their children to school, provide their families' health, and invest in their future. And the potential for expansion of dairy production in development countries remains significant, and dairy sector development could serve as a powerful tool for reducing poverty. And where is the poverty in the world? Well, 7.7% of world population lives in extreme poverty condition. These data are updated just to the last week. So I just took the sustainable development goal in the first, and the second one is the production quantities of raw milk by countries. But if we merge these two elements together, what we see that the great part of country with a higher production are also those where poverty is more present, for instance, Somalia or Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, and so on. This consideration brings me once more to the title of my presentation to underline how important is camel milk for human nutrition. And it's something that we need to exploit in a better way. The biological value of milk is given by the total solids that the dromedary milk have, and let's say there are a lot of literature from this point of view, and I propose here a table which was good summarized by Elegami. It's already a long time table, but actually it's a good overview where the dromedary milk has a total solid content very similar to cow milk. What is different is, of course, the ratio among the protein. Important, for example, is the ratio between whey protein and casein, which in dromedary milk is actually different from cow, and of course much different from human milk. When we talk about protein, we have to refer, of course, to two components, which are caseins and whey protein. Casein are 3 calcium-sensitive phosphoproteins, which are secreted in the milk. They are differentiated in alphas-1, alphas-2, and beta-casein. Those are called K-sensitive casein. Together with the K-casein, contributes to the creation of these, which is the casein micelle. Casein micelles has a great impact also on the dairy production, because according to the sites, this may modulate more or less the curd. In general, what we can say that the spherics, the diameter of camel micelles, it's bigger than what we can find in cow milk, and this negatively affect actually the curd formation. But the amount and the ratio of the 4 casein in the constituting the casein micelle also affect the calculation process. The literature also from this point of view is very abundant. Let's say that the first difference between cow milk and camel milk is also the attachment of the chymosin, which actually doesn't work if we use the cow chymosin to the camel milk. It's never cut the K-casein to produce the curd. Actually, that's why we need to explore. And Poliana gave a good insight from this point of view about different types of enzyme or vegetarian stuff that we can use for making the curd. Summarizing, only looking the casein, we can say that camel milk has a significant concentration of beta-casein, much more than what we can find in cow milk. However, has a lower amount of alphas-1 and K-casein, and in general, it's more similar to human milk than what we can see for the cow milk. Regarding the whey proteins, those are an essential component of camel milk, representing about 20% of the total protein content, and those are highly soluble. They play an important role in the immune system, and they have bioactive properties that promote health. Unlike casein, which are involved in the curd formation, whey proteins remains in the liquid portion after the coagulation. Whey proteins are a complex of several proteins, including immune globulins, lactoferrin, lactoperoxidase, serum albumin, and so on. But the most abundant, it's the alpha-lactoalbumin, whose concentration is almost 3 times what we can find in cow milk, and very similar to what we can find for human milk. Camel milk is also considered hypoallergenic, and this composition of the whey protein surely play an important role for the lack of beta-lactoglobulin as in human milk, make it a potential alternative for people with a cow milk allergy. Regarding the allergy, we all know that human milk is a perfect food for a newborn baby. However, we also know for several reasons that sometimes babies cannot access to breastfeeding, and parents need to feed their babies with a formula milk, also known as baby formula or infant formula, which is usually made by cow milk or soybean treated to make it suitable for the babies. There's a wide range of brands and type of formula, available in pharmacies and shop. And despite this long list that you can find here on the left side, none of the formulas can be appropriate, and babies can still suffer from allergy that result from an abnormal immunological response to one or more cow milk protein. The body produces a great number of IgE antibodies that cause the release of histamine that leads finally to inflammation and resulting in typical allergic reaction. And what we can say is already stated in 1986 that all fractional casein as well as the beta-lactoglobulin are the most common allergies. Camel milk proteins have a unique electrophoretic pattern that are completely different from cow and human milk proteins. When specific anti-sera to camel milk protein were applied in immune blotting analysis, results showed that absence of any immunological cross-reactivity between camel and cow milk proteins, both for casein on the left and also whey protein on the right. In the same study, this is a study conducted by still from Agami, similar results were obtained with sera from children allergic to cow milk were tested for the specificity of their immune globulin E to camel milk proteins, and is on the side here. Cow milk proteins were able to cause high level of IgE inhibition from both casein and whey protein, whereas the camel milk proteins were tested as and their reactivity against IgE was nearly zero, as we can see in this figure. Allergenicity is only one of the aspects that make camel milk so useful for human nutrition. By this example, we understood the protein profile of camel milk is different from that of other milking species. But is this enough to make camel milk so useful for the, let's say, therapeutic properties attributed to camel milk? To mention some example, camel milk is considered anti-diabetic, anti-cancer, anti-hepatitis, beneficial for autism, and so on. Those are some data, okay, obtained by Web of Science database, including basic keywords like camel milk together with diabetes, cancer, infection, and so on. Almost in all cases, we explore an increasing number of studies in the last 20 years, where all these studies scientifically carried out in a correct way, which real information can we get from the trial that have been done both in human and animal models. Actually, it was impossible, of course, for me to read so many papers, but I found several recent studies, including these of Mihik and colleagues, that conducted a systematic search from the 1947 to the a few years ago, to identify all potential eligible studies related to the property attributed to camel milk, with the aim to summarize and evaluate the literature regarding the therapeutic efficacy or safety of camel milk as both therapeutic agent and natural health product supplement. The research resulted in 430 studies of removal duplicate study. After screening and assessing for eligibility, only 24 studies in the end were included, with remaining articles being excluded for reason of irrelevance or containing only in vitro data. Among the published trials investigated the effects of camel milk, 12 studies were carried out in animals and 12 studies were carried out in humans. The current evidence is limited by the lack of well-designed trials to decrease the influence of biases. There are limited studies of preliminary with a few patients and very poor methodological quality. So of the animal model studies, most only reported on surrogate outcomes, and many used inappropriate statistical tests, increasing the risk of multiple errors. On human studies, there were incomplete efficacy outcomes reported. So therefore, out of this research carried out by Milik and colleagues, in my opinion, we need to be very careful to link camel milk to therapeutical and medical effects against the pathology. So this is the information I would like to give in my opinion. We understood that protein profile of camel milk is different from that of other milking species, but we still need to answer to the question the importance of protein variants. Genetic variants of milk proteins play a crucial role in determining the quality, functionality, and health benefits of milk. They influence, I would say, almost everything from the nutritional values to breeding strategy and marketing preferences. I try to summarize, in my opinion, the key reason why milk protein variants are so important. Well, here is a list of potential benefits of the application of selection for milk proteins variants. So they affect the nutritional value and the health property, affect the quality characteristics of milk, influence technological properties, and so on. I will not go deeply on all these aspects, but I will give you an overview of some important aspect of these. The first is that milk protein variants can influence the nutritional profile and health benefit of milk. For instance, camel milk is known for its high concentration of bioactive peptides, which have been linked to various health benefits, including anti-hypertensive, antimicrobial, and antioxidant activity. This is very clear, so we can be sure about that. Camel milk is well recognized as a value functional food for the role already discussed before as an alternative to infant formula, but also for the considerable amount of bioactive peptides, including angiotensin converting enzyme, inhibitor peptides controlling, for example, the hypertension, and with a great potential cardiovascular benefits, extending the appeal beyond the consideration done before as allergenic food. For instance, camel alpha-1 casein show bioactive peptides which are dependent from the genotype, and in particular here we have two examples, alpha-1 variant B, and which contains some peptides. In green and blue you can realize the peptides which are found in variant A and C, but not in variant B, or what you can find both in variant A and B and C. And the same type of peptides you can differently find in alpha-2 casein, where, for example, the two variants, 1 and 2, they produce different peptides with antimicrobial properties. Milk genetic variants affect also the quantitative characteristics of milk protein. An example above all is I take it from domestic cow because to give an impact on it is important. A1 and A2 are two genetic variants of beta-casein, which is a major protein in cow milks, which difference also only in one amino acid in position 67. Well, the A1 variant has the amino acid histidine in position 67, and during the digestion produce one small peptide which is called beta-casomorphin 7, which is linked to the gastrointestinal issue causing bloating, gas, and digestive discomfort in some individual. The A2 variant has the proline in position 67. This form does not produce the beta-casomorphin 7 during the digestion, which is believed to have an easier digest and do not produce discomfort to people who are sensitive to A1 milk protein. In addition to this, some studies suggest that these small peptides may affect also opioid receptors in the gut and brain, leading to possible impacts on digestion, immune function, and even behavior. This is also an example how genetic variants can influence the breeding, the market, and the consumer preferences. Still regarding the alpha-2 milk market, this graph, is illustrate an initial slow growth in the early years, followed by a sharp increase in the last 10 years, driving increased consumer demand of A2 milk as an healthier alternative. In addition, the number of Jersey cow has steadily increased over the years, reflecting the growing demands of A2 beta-casein, which Jersey cow are known to produce in higher amounts. These trends show the correlation between the demand of A2 and the increasing number of Jersey cow in the population. So the genetic variants can affect also the market from this point of view. genetic variants influence the technological properties of milk. An example is given by the K-casein. Still, cow is our reference. K-casein play a crucial role in information and the stabilization of casein micelles in milk, which are essential for the ability to coagulate during the cheese production. The A and B variants are important genetic polymorphisms in dairy cattle. It's well known, sorry, this must be, yes, oh, what's wrong? It's not moving on the right, yes. Okay, sorry, I missed. So the A and B variant are very important genetic polymorphisms. As I said, it's well known that the B variant has more content of K-casein, and this is due to the smaller size of casein micelles, which create a better net during the formation of the card. So when the milk is coagulating, actually is bringing down more fat, and actually the final amount of cheese is much higher, especially if the focus is on producing hard cheese, like, for example, Parmesan. Therefore, genetic variants play an important economical role. In the specific case, can increase the profitability of their farm that specialize in producing cheese. And the selection has an impact on the breeding program, because selecting for the B variant of the K-casein has become a priority worldwide. There is no breeding association worldwide of cow that does not make a selection on B variant of K-casein. So we know that there are a lot of variants in domestic cow. We can actually see about 40 alleles. Not all of them have an impact, but some of them have a great functional impact on milk characteristics. What about camels? Actually, we can say that generally in camels, milk protein has not received adequate attention so far, and information on their genetic variants is still very limited, especially if we link it to functional point of view. And the chromosome, for example, mapping of casein gene has been newly reported, as well as the structure of the casein have been clarified only very recently. Just to give an overview, I will not give very deep on this stuff because it can be very complicated for the audience, but let's say that we found 4 variants in the alpha-1 casein. Most of these results are a result of my work in the last 10 years. In alpha-1, we have 4 variants. 2 of them are a result of an alternative splicing, but also, for example, the C variant and D variant are allelic variants, so due to the mutation in the DNA. At least 2 protein isoforms were identified for the alpha-2 casein as a result of alternative splicing event, and 2 allelic variants found, one in Bactrian camel and the other one in dromedary alpha-2 casein, responsible for amino acid change. One allelic variant has been found in the beta casein, found by myself and later on confirmed also by Rizkalieva in 2018. In addition, let's say that for the K-casein, very few studies are available. There are no genetic variants found within the genes, but a very promising SNP has been found in the promoter region as a putative element to affect the gene expression, which may also have an impact on the production of K-casein, and so finally cheese production. Regarding the whey proteins, the list is quite long. I will talk only a few moments about the most abundant whey protein, which is the alpha-lactoalbumin. Generally, alpha-lactoalbumin belongs to the lysozyme superfamily that also include lysozyme C and calcium-binding lysozyme. The key function of this protein is to facilitate lactose synthesis and have a lot of biological function have been demonstrated, including the immune modulation and antimicrobial activity. Yes, 2 minutes, okay. I'm going to be fast. We studied protein in the 4 domestic camelids. We have found an allelic variant in South American camelids, which was confirmed also from isoelectric point of view. But also we found a very promising STEAP, which impact on the transcription of the gene, and is also genotype dependence, which can enhance or not the gene expression. In particular, we demonstrate by a gene reporter assay that the G variant on the promoter has a great impact on the production of alpha-lactoalbumin and induce the SP1 binding, consequently upregulate the in vitro luciferase gene expression, which might be means that is upregulating also the expression in vivo. In the last few slides, let's move quickly to selective breeding strategies. We can say that integrating genetic data into breeding strategy has the potential to make a revolution how we can improve milk production in camels. Genetic markers associated with high milk quality can be used in selective breeding programs to enhance specific traits. For example, in cattle, we know very well that the best haplotype for higher dairy yield is BBBB, alpha-1 beta K, and beta-lactoglobulin. In camels, this information is not known yet, but the future of the breeding is just started, so we have to actually go further on. Sorry, there was a previous, yes. So integrating the genetic data into camel breeding offer an exciting possibility of innovation. By advancing genomic research and creating a comprehensive breeding program, we can tailor camel milk production to meet specific nutritional need. Selective breeding could allow us to develop camels that produce milk with a specific protein content and so on. So I will go faster. Coming back to the present, although nowadays a raised nip chip are available in camels, the perspective of the application, for example, of genomic selection is still far away to be realized concretely, and the limitation is the recording at the global level of the data and the effect of the phenotype on the breeding. Consequently, we can say that it's actually impossible to estimate the genomic breeding value, and I think that the classical ABV assessment is still a primary challenge for selecting the best stallion for reproduction. Master artist selection and genomic selection can accelerate the program, the speed, identifying animals which have better traits. Sorry, it's going on alone. Better traits, reducing the time, but this need an input from the farmers, this need an input from infrastructure for collecting data and so on. I'm in the conclusion. So this is my last slide. Understanding the function of milk genetic variants allow breeders to select camels that produce milk with superior nutritional properties. We can shape the future of camel milk production, creating healthier, more nutritional products that contribute to human well-being. We just need to work on it. And I finally want to conclude that collaboration based on rigorous scientific approach can unlock so our doors to go on in this way and make a sustainable food production, and camel milk can play a great role from this point of view. In the end, I thank all of you. I would like to thank my research group and the King Badwell Foundation, which allow in all these years to carry out most of my work, and all of you for the great attention, and my family, my daughter playing with alpacas and llamas. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alfredo, for this enlightening presentation.
Sorry for taking 1 minute more than for that.
So we have the right for one question. Any question, please?
Thank you very much, Alfredo, for this very good presentation. If we make some parallelism with what happened in cattle, maybe dairy cattle more precisely, I think the constant problems for camels now is phenotyping, because the genotype is now available. We can do it in
it's the only species where genotypes is faster than phenotyping.
Yes, exactly. So we will have no problem with genotyping and sequencing. For the phenotyping, if we have seen the trend that happened in cattle, many countries started the selection individually, and later some consortiums started to form in Europe, in the United States, in other countries. And now we are quite very concentrated in the biggest consortiums that produce the best males, and they are selling that over all the world. My question is this: for camel, as it's the starting, maybe instead of taking the same pathway that happened with the cattle, starting individually, maybe if a consortium start at the beginning, maybe in some countries that have a lot of camels and a lot of fence to do that, and starting big consortium with big phenotyping projects, and sequencing it's not a problem, and getting some genomic works to get the genomic regions responsible for the traits that we are interested in, and later on distribute that to all the countries. I mean, there is two ways: starting individually, getting to the top, or starting directly to that. What do you think about this?
Well, for sure, there are, let's say, advanced countries which have, for sure, many data we even don't know, but I'm quite sure that in Dubai, they record milk routinely by year, so they have their own progress, and for sure, this may represent perhaps a good starting point for all the other countries which they do not have infrastructure to collect data. This can be a start, but of course I suppose that every country would like to have its own stability and association of breeders which can deliver the aim of selection in a direction differently from what we can find in another country. So my general opinion is this can be a way, but by the way, you cannot escape from phenotyping. So this means that association of breeders need to deal with the government and put money on creating infrastructure to create a net among all the farmers and give the chance to collect the phenotypes. In this case, just milk yield and routine functional control to establish how much is the amount of proteins, fat, and minerals, and so on. This is really the basic start. Otherwise, we can have even the best tool, genetic tool, will not deliver to the improvement of the population.
Thank you very much, Alfredo. Sorry, we have the room for only one question, so we have to catch up. I invite Tuman Wiliji to have a presentation, the next presentation, entitled The Camelid Hair Fiber Production, Characterization, Challenges, and Prospects.
Morning. Can you hear me? Great. I just shows I still have hair. Yeah. First of all, I thank you very much attending only section about the animal fibers, especially on the camelid fibers. Which way go around? This?
The next one?
Yeah. Could you go back one? In this direction. Ah, that direction. Yeah. Not. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'd like to talk briefly about what the past and present and future prospect of the camelid hair fiber. And here I previously speakers last 2 days given most of introduction, so that really saved my talk. So this year is International Year of the Camelids, and we really encourage it to involve many activities promoting the camelid production in various countries. People already talked about that where is camelid important for people's livelihood and then product. My area is about the animal fibers. In this particular case, it's involved with camelid fibers. And camelid fibers mostly produced from Bactrian camels back home in Mongolia, and South American camelids, llamas and alpacas. And the other day, we also saw that some recent conservation program associated with the harvesting fibers from wild vicuñas. So say, as the picture shown that where does camelids exist and what kind of camelids is produced in any particular region. And you don't see any pink, any orange dot in North America. In fact, historic studies showed that camelids originate from North America, right? That is at least a theory. But now in last 100 or so years, from time to time, and introduced that camelid back to North America. For example, here is a large camels, or what we call old camels, old world camels. We see that this one, for example, a Bactrian or two-humped camel. And they also have a feral or wild. The variety exists in Mongolian desert. And also a dormitory camels that exist outside of the traditional country, like in Australia. My friend Rafa talked about this, also introduced this now as feral population. So that is what I'm saying about. That is also another reason I continued involved with the camelid and fiber research. Because in the 90s and 2000, there's a kind of worldwide exporting or importing the South American camelids to the other countries like in New Zealand, Australia, and America. And if you're looking at that, and at the moment in US, they nearly have about 500,000 small camels or camelids. And there's also about 2,000 to 5,000 large camels, mostly dormitory. And before I actually come out to this conference, I made some phone calls around the people. For example, in US, there's two organizations. One is called Alpaca Registry, INC, which is mostly registered at alpacas and llamas. And recently, they also have an organization called NACROA, and I searched up them and then talked to them. They're called North American Camel Owners and Ranchers Association. They're a very small organization, but they started to collecting back old camels, dormitory camels, and setting up that camel dairy farm. So second, I talk about the fibers produced from camels. So this fibers is just like our hair. It's just like most of our body composition, mostly made of protein. Some people say, oh, hair is just byproduct. In fact, it's not. It is a compulsory growth of your body, a compulsory component of any animal's growth fibers. So we could utilize this as kind of traditionally for textile purpose. And you will see that a lot of fashion design actually utilizing these camel fibers. Okay, some people say, okay, it's not very important for dormitory camels for fiber. In fact, they're very important. If you could utilize these resources, this is regenerative resources you could utilize for. So let's say here's some characteristics about that camel, how much they produce, what the significance for the textile purpose. And most of the important characteristics required for textile purposes, of course, is fiber diameter and stable length and so on. So for a lot of the fiber work I involved with the South American camelid. When I was postgraduate and postdoctoral work in New Zealand, and I continued on as a scientist. Fortunately, that time we actually, for the Ministry of Agriculture, we imported the first shipment of the alpacas from Peru and continued on other countries and then set up very much pioneering work on that camelid raised in that off that Andean highland. So this is basically how to raise that camelids like in other livestock in that advanced agriculture countries like New Zealand and Australia. So here's some kind of statement that most of populations belong to what they call the two breeds. One is Hokkaya, another one is Suri, right? So from camelid fibers, what can you produce? You could produce various different kind of products. If you could read that a lot of literature reviews, you could see how they used for that ancient people. Until now, a lot of nomadic and pastoralists still using the same resources for the same purposes. For example, if you could see that I visited a few times Peru, I went on the Highlander and people how to locally harvest and locally making own clothing and carpet and so on. This kind of product, you never see the statistics, how much they produce and how much they used. And from this very early traditional way of utilizing these fibers, as well as that now high fashion design, for example, some stars, film stars, and some fashion designers and so on. You could make a very top niche product out of it. Is this going anymore? Okay, of course, you could look at this from here. If you're looking at this side, there's several bunch of that yarn. Actually, I made it about 30 years ago when I worked with that alpacas introduced from the Peru. And that time, we actually processed into all kinds of different coat colors and try to make out the product how it could be utilized for modern textile purposes. So you could see from here's very much design, modern fashion, or you could go back to very traditional way as kind of furnishing or the carpet production and so on. So there's people say, okay, what kind of characteristics or standards required for producing and processing that camelid fibers? Here's one actually, I think it's either Bolivia or Peru, they have this kind of standard. In fact, every country all have their own standard. But for me, if you're really going to produce and make sure that it's processed through, only look after that, what I written in below. I always saying, okay, you just look at what you're producing is that just measure or selection for the fiber diameter, that is fineness. And if you could, you also look at the length of that fiber as well as that the strength of the fiber if you actually going through that the mechanical processing. So this is, most of producers or users, they're looking at this kind of quality. First of all, they're looking at the softness, warmness, durability, and lightweightness. Of course, some people also claiming it's anti-allergic and so on, which is, of course, possibly there, but it's not that important as far as producers are concerned. So why we say this is most important, you're going to focus on fiber diameter and softness, because this is really related with very much with that uniqueness and the fiber diameter fineness. So you could see that a lot of assessment, manufacturer's assessment, and related with this measurement, objective measurement. For example, several specialty fiber concerned, the camel fiber, 17 to 90 micron, they all regarded as very soft. Merino wool, 18 to 24 micron, is also regarded as soft. If you're looking at the cashmere, very similar to camel hair down, that means undergrowth coat, and the alpaca fiber, is fiber diameter is quite varied because there's many different varieties involved. And this is another thing that's insulation property and so on. You could look at it by yourself. And here's this other manufacturing or processing assessment comparing the several specialty fibers. Okay, so say, as far as characteristics, there's a lot of studies available, a lot of data available. Even this one is I just chosen from not somewhere produced in this part of the world, who said dormitory camels not produce fibers. They do, actually, when they do produce, and they produce very good quality fibers. It's just a matter of how to utilize this, okay? When I looked at his presentation showing some camels rest here, southern part of this country, and looked to me, they're really producing very nice fibers. And fibers and milk is not like other animal products. It is regenerative resources, right? So it's we should utilize this very efficiently. And look at the other publication about that heritability and so on. A lot of the fiber actually very much like other wool and so on. If you could see that its correlation and its property of the strength and so on. And it's very similar to other fibers, like, for example, this one is I did in New Zealand. If I look at this heritability and so on, it's very much like in superfine wool breeding and genetics in Australia represented. And here's another one as published in from the Peruvian work, also about the productivity and this genetic parameters and so on, very similar to what we studied before. And here's some years ago, I also compared this heritabilities and all the characteristics compared with alpaca and sheep. It's very much same. So if you really want to produce this and select this, you could get good genetic gains. And similar thing as there's not much difference between male and female if you could analyze by different sexes. I just rush it through a little bit faster because many of you really not in that field. So if you're really interested in future, you can get contact with me. I could help you set up pretty lab and work on this. Other day, people also talked about the different coat color and so on. You guys identified some genetic markers and so on. In fact, a lot of the color, coat color is very important for South American camelid, llamas and alpacas and so on. It's probably not that important in large camels. You basically, for large camels, is one color, right? It's either light shaded or dark shaded, brown or whatever you call it. But in alpacas, camelids, you have seen about more than 20 different kinds of shade and patterns, but it's mostly controlled by only group of 3 or 4 different genes. But I looked at it as far as the production performance concern, there's not much differences between any coat colors. So it's very similar fiber diameter, very similar production. So if you really want to produce most favorite coat color, you just go for it. It's not much differences. And this is one work I did many years ago. It's just showing you how the environmental and nutritional effect on that particular product of a fiber. For example, this is a bunch of that animals, about 200 animals we imported from Peru. And you could see first line is the fiber diameter distribution. It's very fine. Two of our guys went to Peru, actually went on the mountain, tested one by one, and come back and selected the animals. After I put on the farm 1 year, you could see how far that fiber diameter actually get coarsened. It's because of the nutrition, because of the environment, they have a huge effect. And also, after a few years, they're kind of a smaller coarsening. That is because of the age and possibly also some effect of the nutrition. And there's a lot of studies actually conducted in Australia and New Zealand and USA, especially in the 90s and 2000 years, because that is kind of fashion, you know. If you have some money and even you put on your house on a loan and get a few llamas or alpacas in your backyard, and you're supposed to be rich, and you're supposed to be one day become, you know, rich farmers. But that is not end up like that. So you could see a lot of that come out. After that, it's become really quiet, and everything is come back to normal. What you used to operate is still used to operate, right? So here's some work done by my colleague. They just alpacas on a different regional, and myself has also compared some several states and different farmers, 9 different farmers, and what they product test and so on. But they don't like to give their name, so I just put 1, 2, 3, 9. Okay. But overall, you're looking at it. First one is actually the particular ranch I worked with, past 20 years. As far as the genetic concern, they really made that great genetic gain as far as that fiber production. So I say, where's the fiber from? From the skin, right? In the skin, there's this so-called follicles. So every individual fibers, like on one equal to one individual organ, they produce that fiber from this. And this is made by several histological components. I'm not going to go through detail, but just see that you have epidermis, dermis, and hypoepidermis. So that's, if we're looking at the skin level, this is what that fiber or skin histology looks like. You can see that primary fibers, secondary fibers. So what that fiber grown out from primary, we call hair. What is grown out from secondary fibers, we call it down coat or undercoat or secondary fibers. And we, of course, mostly looking at that, collect more of the secondary fibers. And if you're looking at this camels, 2 camels, dormitory and backtrend is very similar follicle structures. And llama and alpacas is very similar. However, alpacas and vicuñas, they have a much denser follicles. And when they have much denser follicles, they have finer fibers. So here's some work I did some years ago, and also I shown you a few literatures, given you on comparing several alpacas, Surya and Hokkaya, and the old and young, and looking at what the primary follicle numbers and secondary follicle numbers, and so on. So once they have that, the follicle numbers, everything is actually stabilized. They no longer creating any more new fibers or new follicles. So if you're looking at the camels in general, they're just like a Kashmir goat. As it's been formed for a long evolutionary history, they kind of have a response to photo period, and they're going through that active and non-active period of the growth in the follicles. So this is one work actually either studied in Pakistan or India, I forgot now. You could see that particular months in spring, they have a kind of low activity or low growth. But the fibers, they never stop growth, okay? And in fibers, you also have that fine fibers and coarse fibers, and some people said it's methylated fibers. So methylation is one kind of backdraw of that fiber. So people usually eliminating it by the deheating process, or you long-term, you to breathe it out or breathe to reduce this particular components. So since my studies, I always like to work with macroanalysis and using macroscope, electron microscope, and so on. So if you're looking at the fiber and the macroscope in camelid, you could see this kind of 5 types of the different fibers. Especially in camel and alpaca fiber, why are people saying it's soft and lightweight? Because the common characteristics is they're having some air filled in core of their fibers, right? So it's the same volume of the fibers, they have much lightweight than the wood. So that is say, if you're looking at this, you could see 5 types. For example, that one slide you're showing is one huge guard here, or that methylated fiber, whole core is kind of air filled, right? And on the top of the graph, that is actually I monitor on that particular ranch. When you have that particular setup group of the alpacas, you could monitor through the age up to, now it's probably about 17 years old. I monitor up to 13 years old. Once it goes through 8, 9 years old, they increasing a little bit coarser and more methylated fibers. Okay, when you're looking at that fibers or any textile product, it's just like same. But if you're looking under microscope, quite different, right? All that animal or human hair, they're all covered with certain kind of scales, or just like fish, you know, when you're looking at fish, they have very obvious scales. But the fibers is also same. Reason they're so soft is they have the very short scales or
2 minutes.
longer.
Sorry, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay, that's long enough, yeah. But if you're looking at that much more detail using the electron microscope, where you actually see the reason. See, if you're looking at this camel fiber and alpacas and guanacos, their scale is kind of long, but scale height is very, very low. Therefore, they don't have the friction on your skin and so-called next to skin field. However, there's a lot of high-tech. Why the camel fibers or alpaca fibers so favored? Because they also do with the chemical structures. Okay, if you're looking at it, particular area, the bending usually recoverable, and that is due to its chemical structures. But I'm not going to go detail about that. And next topic I briefly talk is why we actually at this point. If you look at this graph on this side, in 1990s, first time man-made fibers actually produce more than natural fibers. That is one challenge brought to that animal fiber, including animal fibers. But same time, if you're looking at the other side, other natural fibers still producing quite large quantities. So if we producing any animal fibers, if you go with the other natural fibers, let's say blending and so on, you still have a great future for producing this. So that's one thing I said in US, for example, if we could rely on genetic selection, you actually could make good progress toward that producing finer fibers. So here's one evidence I've shown you. Past about 18, 20 years of selection, how this particular ranch actually receiving fiber diameter as fine as that Vicuña and camels. And so what can we do in future? I really don't know. I would suggest you could do basically either doing for multi-purpose selection and breeding, or you could go for a dual purpose or concentrate on one or two particular trait, go for selection and breeding. That is what I come up with that. But as far as that Bactrian camels, now they kind of getting popular producing milk, that could be combined with that fiber producing. In South American camelids, they're probably more concentrated on the fiber producing. In llamas, for example, they also could be used for the meat. In fact, some llamas produced in South America, in fact, it's much, much finer than alpacas we're producing somewhere else. So that is end of my talk. I thank you all guys, even not in the field, still attended my presentation, and hopefully you could pick up some new project and work on dormitory farmers and make it new use of it. And also I thank you, organization, inviting me first time involved in this great gathering and presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Truman. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and for showing once more that the camel is a multi-purpose animal. We are supposed to have some questions before the coffee break, so wake up, please.
Thank you very much. This was really a nice presentation and something new which I wasn't knowing. So one thing which I got really a little bit of confused whether it is correct was, do you said like that the camelid fiber, like dromedary camels, they produce the fiber which has the diameter of about 16 to 20 micrometers, which is like that of the cashmere wool. And if it is like that, then I think it could be a huge industry. I mean, the cashmere, if it's a cashmere shawl or a small cashmere cloth piece, it costs more than about 10,000 maybe dirhams. So why it has not been utilized so far for production of this fiber and for production of these? I mean, this could be a very good industry which could be tapped on.
Yeah, thank you for your question. As a matter of fact, if you're looking at that each camel, according to that body size and the surface, they in dormitory camel, they could produce at least a kilogram or 2 kilogram fleece per year. Reason we're not utilizing this is this traditionally they not regarded as the premium product. People more inclined to use immediate benefit or slaughter animal, eat the meat, use the hide, and so on. And another thing, recent use is using the milk. So they really overlooked that lot of benefit of utilizing fibers, right? So in that particular area here, you actually have harvest resources. When you slaughter camels, you have that hide, right? When you have the hide, you actually process through particular product, end product, value-added product, come up with utilizing both fiber on skin and on that hide. If you're using that for milk, and that means you continuously raising that camel for years, and you could harvest that fiber from year to year. And that product you also could be used for particular end product, not necessarily go through that apparel product like that. You could make up different product, for example, some product using the shorter fibers like filling, like coming out very nice man's or ladies hat, fur hat, or you could make up with other product. Only thing is our system is not set up like that, separating according to its qualities and then processing. That's it. So there's potential here.
Hello, thank you for your talk. You present data on the South American camelids and also the dromedary. And what about the Bactrians? Is there any research on that? Is a gap of research on Bactrian fibers?
Yeah, there's a lot of research, mostly in Inner Mongolia or Mongolia, but a lot of the publication is not in English literatures, but there's some data. And some fibers I got is only from my friend and old colleagues, and just limited within the laboratory size.
And which is the diameter of the Bactrian camel?
Bactrian
fiber?
is a, they usually present as the D-head camel fibers. So when the D-head is most of fiber test is the undercoat, which is the range about 17 to 20 something micron.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Thank you. Dr. Wology, thank you so much. Like, there are so many questions when it comes to thermoregulation and when it comes to the type of fibers that the camel has, and I have no answer and no one does. But it seems to me like it's embedded in your research. The way you presented the sweaty glands and you presented the hair follicles, and you didn't talk about sweaty glands in there, but the hair follicles, they are completely different from all species that I have studied. Right. And I did a little bit of research on the skin, but the number of the secondary follicles amazed me. So maybe the type of fiber depends on those, because the way that I saw it, it's only one primary, and I don't know how many, 10, 20, 23, Dr. Rifat Al-Jassim is saying, because he worked on it and he helped me actually when trying to interpret some of these structures. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the hair follicle numbers if you have any data in that? Because that will dictate the type of fabric we are going to get. Thank you.
Hey, actually, I was thinking of it. I'm going to send off you some biopsy samples for your histology lab. In fact, most of the animals, including ourselves, whenever they grew that hair fibers, usually they have a follicle group, and in each follicle group, they usually come out 3 primary fibers. And that fibers grown out during fetus time about 30 to 50 days earlier than secondary fibers. And once then, before the birth, the secondary follicles formed, and then each group, they end up with primary to secondaries. So it's a lot of the premature breeds, like camels and goat, and so on, they have that every primary follicle usually have about 3 to 5 secondaries. But a lot of the breed animals like wool breed, merinos and so on, they have every one primary fibers usually have about 10 to 20 different secondaries. So that's why their fiber diameter is getting finer or smaller. That is.
Thank you, Camel. Just one last question, please. And we'll be going to the coffee break.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا دكتور على هذا العرض هذا العرض الشيق اللي هو يعني عنه إزالة الألياف بما نسمونه نحن في الأقاليم الجنوبية زز الوبر. بالنسبة للوبر هو كان بالنسبة لساكنة الأقاليم الجنوبية هو كان عنده اهتمام.
Could you tell me a question?
He's saying thank you, Doctor, for the interesting lectures they have in the southern part of Morocco, and he's gonna ask.
شكرا دكتور على هذا العرض الشيق. شكرا دكتور على هذا العرض الشيق اللي هو يعالج موضوع مهم اللي هو موضوع كان تراثي عندنا احنا في الأقاليم الجنوبية وتقليدي، وهو كان موسم والله قاعد يعود عبارة عن مهرجان، مهرجان الزز، وكان زز الإبل هو مرة واحدة في السنة خلال شهر مارس، وكانوا يعدلوا منه الخيام. تلاحظون مقار طنطان، وتلاحظون كذلك مدخل مدينة العيون ومخرجها بأن هناك خيمة. هذه الخيمة كانت من ألياف الإبل على مستوى الزمن القديم، لكن الهجرة من البادية إلى المدينة أصبحت في تناقص. هذه عملية إزالة الألياف، وهذه إزالة الألياف كانوا المربين في السنوات الماضية عندما يرون غرابا طائرا يحمل وبرا، والله وبرا، قطعة من الوبر، يعرفون أن هناك قطيع من الإبل في الجهة الشمالية والله الشرقية، والله لأن الألياف هو الحمد لله هو موضوع مهم. وننظروا احنا في الأقاليم الجنوبية يعني عن هناك دراسات باش نرجعوا هذه العملية صناعة الوبر للمنطقة. يا غير خالقة نقطة قلتها الدكتور قبيل، بأن هناك كذابة أكدوا لك أن الألياف في تراجع. نحن نلاحظ في التغيرات المناخية أصبحت ألياف الإبل في تراجع كبير. وشكرا.
So he's thanking you for the presentation because he thinks that the fiber is an important product. He said that in ancient time they have like a festival to cut the fibers during the month of March, and with climate change they constate that the fiber quality and the quantity is reducing in camels. So he's asking if there's any studies about the effect of climate change on the fibers, and if there is a solution for them to go back and work on fibers in Morocco.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. There's no doubt we've been neglected on that particular product from that Demetri camels for a long, long time. For example, that as far as the climate change and so on, we actually can't do much about climate change. Only thing is we're going to slow down its negative effect and how to adapt into that particular climate changing phase. For the product you're talking about, in past you're not collecting, for example, dormitory camels are growing a little bit shorter fibers, so you actually could collect it, let's say every 2 years or every 18 months, clipping rather than every 12 months. For example, in Camelid, Vicuña in South America, they only collecting once every 2 years and so on. And another thing is also you could depend on how to use it. For example, short fibers you could use for other purposes, which is actually saving process, chopping up and using that in the blanket and so on. And nowadays, you could, another solution is blending is a good future. Using some advantage of the camel fibers, you could blend with the other long fibers, for example, silk, or for example, other cotton and so on. So you could there's endless possibilities using for a value-added product. I'd like to have a question from Dr. Colin Jan.
You can discuss after the session because we have 30 minutes.
Okay, right.
Sorry.
That's
I have to declare that this part of the session is, and you can catch up with Dr. Tuman after the break. Okay, thank you very much. We'll be back here at 12, please. 11:45? 15 minutes. Okay, so after 15 minutes, coffee break, please. Honorable audience, please take your places. The session is about to start, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prof. Wael Khamas. He will give us a talk about the side effects of cosmetics, use of Botox on camel face, complex morphology and functions. You have 25 minutes also.
Thank you very much. So I'm still stuck with the wool and hair. Back home in California, when I present something, I first comb my mustache, but I forgot the comb at home. So I don't know whether I will be able to speak or not. Anyway, let's start. So this is a unique subject that you may not apply here, but it can be applied on human in addition to the animal. And for your surprise, that they used cosmetics in Saudi Arabia, in Emirate, the pageant camel show. The winner, $10 to $14 million. So the best she camel. And the way that they modify certain characteristic features resulted in them trying to fake the beauty as they think. So I'm going to show you a few things here. And maybe I will start with the anatomy and the effect of modifying or changing any structure on the face of animal or human, because the vascularity, the innervation, the lymphatics, and all the anatomical structures, including the salivary glands and the ducts, regardless what you tell me as an anatomist, that you have done minor things, it's going to affect something. The parasympathetic innervation to the glands will be affected because they are tiny, thin fibers. Some of them, they hitchhike with major nerves coming from the parasympathetic part, which is the vagus or the glossopharyngeal or the facial nerve. I hope I'm not going to be overwhelming you with the anatomy terminologies, but I will try to summarize that even the coat that my friend Toman spoke about, the hair and how the animal survive under these extreme temperatures, whether they are here in the Sahara or in Inner Mongolia, where I went there, and I was thinking, how did they survive? So the temperature fluctuates between day and night, and most of you may know this physiologically, and any kind of modification may affect this kind of change. You see that we are comparing the camel with the human and the ground squirrel. And you can see that the human is almost constant, and we need to keep this kind of temperature by just putting a jacket, take the jacket off, water, whatever, like we accommodate in addition to eating so that we can produce energy and warm our body. We thought that part of the animal, like the respiratory system, the lung, that is one of my students' graduate project in Jordan. There are some extensions in the lung of the camel. We thought that there are some thermoregulation, but it seems like negligible compared to other parts. But I'm going to just show you a few images and think about intervention in that area, regardless what it is, even if it's a hit. ضربة على الوجه للحيوان. It will affect the circulation, the lymphatics, and whatever I just mentioned to you. Look at these These are not all. These are the manageable vessels that we can dissect. There are so many smaller branches, we call them arterioles and capillaries, and they are very useful to function and to nourish that specific part of the body. In addition to the brain, as you see it here. Can you see? These are casts. We inject the specimens, and then we macerate, we remove everything, and we get these vessels to show you the branching. And again, we can take the brain or the head of the camel in front of you without any structure, just the blood vessels, and you will be amazed how many of these vessels. We were talking about the arteries. Now we are switching to veins. And these veins, everywhere in the body, they have valves, bicuspid valve. And in the head, they do not have, some of them, valves, so that the blood may move in two directions, to the brain for thermoregulation and to the jugular vein when it is not needed in that area. So one of the researchers, Kawat et al., 1990, he studied the angularis oculi vein, the vein going into the eye, and he noticed that lack of valves to start with, because it has been demonstrated, and I personally worked on the sheep and goat, and I established that fact years before, but he established it in camel, and he found certain sphincter يعني قابضة أو غالقة للشريان أو الوعاء الدموي الفين الوريد. Under certain temperature, you can see temperature reach certain level, and the sphincter will be open. The blood will go to the brain, thermoregulate, coming from the nasal area when we are breathing or the animal is breathing. So having all of that in mind before you start doing anything, and I know we are not doing it here, but I'm coming from California. Very rarely I see any of the young generation without tattoo and without big lips or whatever, like cosmetology they have. So it may, but you are going to be protecting our animals and thinking about them when you tie the rope around them. So cosmetology and the use of either biological absorbed or non-biological inert particles injection, they are trying to correct certain defects or to purify the animals, as I stated before, in Saudi Arabia. And it was used for decades in a human being, and they introduced it in camel, as I mentioned. And one of the common fillers is the hyaluronic acid. It is reabsorbed within 3 to 6 months. Tell me, the animal will wait for me and will not have any changes in the blood vessels or functions in the blood vessels or the thermoregulation of the brain, which is going to be affecting the pituitary gland and all the hormone on the body. I am not going to exaggerate if I say my expectation, even minor changes will affect the hormone on the genital system and the mammary gland. So think about it, 6 months. Yes, hyaluronic acid present everywhere in our body, in the joint, in the cartilages, in the connective tissue, in the skin that my colleague presented. So this is the bond, the backbone of the glycose aminoglycan in that area to absorb water and then hold it. And when we move, it releases the water. The same is happening in the skin. If you are obstructing that region with the structure, yes, you are facilitating it, but a large amount of it may obstruct these blood vessels. Other permanent fillers, including the silicone and adipose tissue. Again, regardless what we do, we are not going to be mimicking the exact same structure that God created this amazing animal. We are missing so many. I'm giving you ideas so that if you want to do some research or anatomy, histology, or physiology and function of that specific region, myself and Dr. Al-Jassim wrote a grant to Saudi Camel Club a couple of years ago, and it seems like it's not successful, but they didn't contact us yet. So we wanted to do some kind of research in that region. Now, taking all of this in consideration, and I personally was advised by Dr. Al-Jassim to touch upon the welfare. Okay, we talk about it. And I'm not going to say we and Europe, we and America, because it's true. There are some differences. But I can tell you so many examples in America and in Europe. They are violating the welfare of animals. If you think about it, it's not going to be big issue if you don't study and look at it carefully. Now, in America, maybe 65, 70s, they started to think about the animal welfare and started to talk about the mouse and rats. I have taken a picture from somewhere on the internet. Mr. Google is generous with us. And there was a mouse with glasses and a cane in front of the research institute in Moscow at that time. This guy served the humanity. And similar to what we are doing now, I have high respect. I don't know how you take it, of the donkeys. They served us. No, we don't need you anymore. We are done with you. The same is with camel. In the beautiful example, Dr. Al-Jassim educated me on the eradication of some of them and killing. They served them for hundreds of years. And the railways started, we don't need you. Thank you very much. You may die. We don't care anymore. So I am giving you some examples, and one of the books like that I bought a couple of weeks ago, published by Padalino and Fay, 2024. And they are talking about the ability of the people to survive the harsh desert environment resulted in giving high priority to their lives. I understand. I am living in the same place that we went and had great time yesterday night. And thank you for organizing that, sir. I'm staying there, and I don't have enough water. Should I drink it or give it to my camel? If you ask me, I'm a vet, and I'm a very soft heart, and Dr. Al-Jassim can attest to that. I will sit and cry before I share it. Thank you, sir. Alfredo said, we share it with your camel. I may give it all to her. Anyway, but I will share it so that I can stay alive and take care of her. Yeah, what I'm saying here, that with all due respect to Padalino and Dr. Fay, he is our colleague and he attended every activity that we have, almost. Why don't we publish something about that? Yeah, and when you read the book, which I did not finish it because I received it before I came here a week or so, still, we should do something, regardless what it is. The way that we are visiting the farms, the way I handle the camel. We went to Muscat, one of the ISOCAR conferences in 2012, and they brought a very young she-camel. She's so beautiful, so proud of herself. The crowd moved, and oh yeah, and I was trying to mount her. And you remember, sir, you said that, well, don't do it. I tried, and she threw me on her back, off her back. And the guy tried to hit her, and he did once. I stopped him. Does she know? Or did she know what she did? No. So with the way we treat the animals when we visit the farmers, when we examine the animal, when we advise them to put the waterer, the feeder, you have only one tree and you are not using it. It's only 10 feet. Use it, move the water under there. So there are several other examples, and they are giving us like the behavior, during the rut season and how the animals behave and how they hurt each other. Okay, do something about it, but it's not all welfare. I'm not going to talk about animal rights because it's going to be funny for all of us. I have some ideas and information about it, and then they treat the dog as an individual. In America, dog and cats, they have rights to a certain extent. In addition to the welfare, other animals, we eat them. I said, they are animals. They feel, I know their nervous system. Come on. You want me to tell you where the receptors of pain are? And they were laughing because it's not easy. I am not saying that in America we are better than other people. No, but we have laws and regulation and cruelty against animal. We confiscate animals from owners if they are treating them badly. And so we are talking about here, and I'm not going to go into welfare in more details because you see that even in America, the animal welfare started, as I stated, in late 60s, 70s. You know what we signed in law? The laying hens. We have millions of them. They cannot move their wing. I am a bird lover and a camel lover and all animals lover. Let's put it this way. I want to cry when I see them. So we put a proposition in 2015 and it passed during election. We voted to give the bird, the hen, laying eggs for us, room to move her wing and talk. She cannot see who's next to her. Is that a humane treatment of all animals? Anyway, going back into what we can do, I would say that think about one thing. You say, no, it's useless, we cannot do it. Yes, we can. Similar to the diseases and the parasites we mentioned by beautifully our friends and colleagues, Dr. Kishu, yesterday. If we are going to be treating, he could not finish his presentation because there are too many diseases. But I am going to tell you, go to the restaurants in our city, in California, and collect samples from restaurants. You will not eat in these restaurants from the bacterial load that you have. So from what Dr. Kishu presented, I will pick one single item and I will attack it or plan to address it one way or another. The same goes here. The attention, when you speak to people, oh, the animals need to be treated well. How I am feeding the animal and giving him water or her. Okay, the water is under the sun. Can you hold it until they are thirsty and put it in so that it will be better and cold for them? That's simple, right? If I go to a farm, I will definitely clean that trough for them. I will put an overall, clean it, and I'll say, I just want to see your camel and go around. Maybe when 1, 2, 3 times I visit, he or she will be doing that. And I can go on behavior, body condition. We are evaluating the body condition of the camel, and that is reflected from the treatment. If we treat the animal badly, the stress of the cortisol and other hormones, this will not facilitate the digestion and the metabolism. Dr. Rifat Al-Jassim always tell us about. This is specific minerals will affect the performance of the animal. We need to change. Our religion, like, لازم أحكي بالعربي. And I know أعرف إنه راح يتم ترجمته بس بالطريقة اللي أراها مناسبة. الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام يعني القطة أمالت الامرأة لها الإناء لتشرب دخلت الجنة. الجمل أو الشي كامل صاحبها نزل ترجل منها وقعد في ظل الشجرة وهي الحمل على ظهرها. الرسول قال له أنت دا ترتاح؟ قال له نعم ارتاح. قال له كيف ترتاح؟ إذا الناقة ما ترتاح معاك نزل الحمل وأكل وأصعد. Minor things, I am begging you. I'm not telling you what to do. Minor things in our behavior, in our movement, in our speech, in our patience may result in better treatment, better physiology and function of the camel. I think I am very close to the end. So animal rights, don't worry about it. People in America leave money for their dogs, and I was sad for a month or two for the death of my dog, and for a day or two for the death of my pigeon. Imagine, like, I have soft heart, but what I'm saying, these are creatures of God. Let's take care of them. And I put some kind of cases, one of them that my brother and friend, Dr. Al-Jassim, asked me to evaluate an article written by Dr. Qureshi et al., and it's a case report. I cried it twice, and I stopped the evaluation and went back to it. You don't know the number of broken ribs. They found the animal buried. They dig the animal. It's a camel in Pakistan, and it's published data. I'm not publicizing and saying anything against them. I am running out of time. But you put 17,000 pounds on the back, or kilogram of sugar on the back of the animal. The ribs were broken, almost all of them. The pelvic bone, the femur, broken and healed by itself irregularly. And scapula, you name a bone in the upper part of the body, it was broken. We should be careful when we see something, even in the street. We advise the man, yes, they want to make money by doing that. This is the last slide that I have for you. We usually go to zoo to look at animals, and God wants to teach us a lesson. And he put us in our homes during COVID, and the animals roam around. They are looking at us through our windows. This may happen anytime if we don't treat our animals well. And I would like to thank you for your patience with me. These are some references here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Professor Wael, for this enlightening presentation. We have room for some questions, so please don't hesitate. You had your coffee. Question? Yes.
Yes, sir. This is the
السلام
important
عليكم.
person. Yes,
بسم الله
sir.
الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا دكتور على هذا العرض القيم. وانا بغيت نزيدك اضافه على احترام الابل وتشجيعها بالنسبه للاقاليم الجنوبيه. ومما يزيد هذه الحظوه حضور الابل الوازن في وجدان المجتمعات عامه، والمجتمع الصحراوي خاصه بالاقاليم الجنوبيه، فهي مهرا للعروس وعقيقه المولود وفديه للتعويض المتضررين، كما تعد أعلى مرتبة الكرم بالصحراء. فإذا نحر الرجل لضيفه بعيرا يعتبر ذلك قمة الكرم والإكرام. وأكد بعض الباحثين أن أهل الصحراء بالأقاليم الجنوبية يحبون إبلهم بشكل طقوسي واسع، ويعشقونها كعشقهم للمرأة والشاي والمكان، ويتقنون بها ويمجدونها في أشعارهم ويهنون أنفسهم دفاعا عنها، ويضربون بها الأمثال في الغيرة والثار وعدم النسيان والإساءة والصبر وحب الوطن، لأن الإبل هي الحيوان الوحيد الذي يحب وطنه. إذا كانت الناقة تحب منطقة العيون فلا تهاجر إلى منطقة الداخلة. هذا مثلا في الغيرة والثار وعدم النسيان والإساءة والصبر وحب الوطن والخبرة في الأرض ومسالكها. وكذلك نؤكد لكم أن الإبل تعرف تغيرات الأحوال الجوية، فالمربون يعرفون من خلال الجمل هل يكون الجو بارد أو حار أو ممطر، أو هل هذه الناقة ستشرب القدير في السنة عن خلال حالات بالنسبة للإبل. ونشكركم كثيرا وشكرا.
بارك الله فيك، شكرا جزيلا. أنا ما أقدر أقول غير مثال واحد إذا يسمحوا لي الكرام الموجودين وبناتي، إنه كانوا اثنين من المربين. أنت جبت الحديث عن حب الجمل والمرأة، فكانوا يلتقون في مكان ما، فجزء من القصيدة اللي ما أذكرها يقول: أحبها وتحبني ويحب ناقتها بعيري. لأنه من يقعد يحكي يجتمعون على جهة، هذول الحيوانات الأليفة الجميلة اللي تجيب لنا الحب وتجيب لنا الحليب. We have to treat them better. لازم نعاملهم أفضل. Am I done? Thank you.
Other questions? We would like to hear someone else also.
عندما كان امرؤ القيس على ناقته زار ديار ليلى وهي خالية. قال: مررت على الديار ديار ليلى أقبل ذا الجدار وذا الجدار، وما حب الديار شغفنا قلبي ولكن حب من سكن الديار. حتى نحن إذا مشينا بالنسبة للآثاري لنعود نحبوه على ذي الوجوه الطيبة. وشكرا.
شكرا. Another question, just last one. We can keep going on and on camels, so.
There's a better mic here.
Thank you for this presentation. My question is, do you know about the welfare measurement in Europe? If this measurement the same in USA or not? I don't know.
To my knowledge,
Yes.
there are certain aspects of it better in Europe than USA, and there are some like human, an animal rights group. They started to attack certain research labs in America because we are using mice and rats in experiments. I joined the College of Veterinary Medicine at Western University of Health Science for one reason, like they have the reverence for life. They respect the life of the plant, not only the animals. Since 2003, I did not put down a mouse. I did not kill an ant. And you have to demonstrate to me, like taking a picture of me doing this. Why? These are creatures of gods. So we embalm animals, they donate it to us. But animal rights people, they don't like what we do, and I don't blame them. I will join them when I retire. Because like our standard is still below the level.
Excuse me. If you know that the Akrar minister in Netherlands, he said it is not allowed camels in Netherlands to rearing or to husbandry. Do you know this situation?
I
for
don't
1
know.
year ago?
I don't know this fact, but I will consider that
Because
part
it's
of
dangerous.
the economy. It's not like welfare. It's the economy, the reason, the water.
Not from welfare.
I don't know much about Lebanon. With all due respect, I know more about other educational system in Lebanon, but not on camel, because they
Okay.
don't have many, to my
Thank
knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can keep the discussion after the session. So I call for Eddie for the next presentation. He will present us unveiling the hidden threats, exploring HEPA toxin contamination in camel meat, and ensuring food safety. The floor is yours. You have 25 minutes. This one, yes. This one. Come on, yeah. Let's try it. No. That one, yes. Doesn't work, you just try it.
Yeah, it works.
25 minutes, please.
Right. Testing. Yep. Very good afternoon to all of the audience. And first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizer for inviting me to come over for this talk and sharing. I think for the past 3 days, we have learned a lot from many prominent professors from all around the world in terms of social, economic, from the genetics point of view, from the potential of the camelid industry. For example, Dr. Wani highlighted the $1 million industry for camel. And then we have these professors from the genetic field talking about the variants of camels, like Prof. Alfredo and other geneticists. And then we have this Prof. Badawi highlighting the paradigm shift of traditional use of camels as for transportation into camel meat and milk industry. Yeah? Even though the market share is still relatively low, but I do believe it has the potential to increase in the future. And very lucky that today we have a sharing from Food Technologies, Prof. Mendes. It was very inspiring. I think that is the job of Food Technologies, to take one product and trying to innovate them and create more new products into the market in order to increase the sales into the consumer point of view. Yeah? But those are we considered as the push factor, which is very good in order to boost the camel industry, either the geneticists, either the animal scientists, or the food technologies. But at the same time, the job of food technologies, like me, I'm not the expert in camel. I'm just a little baby in the camel field, but having honored being given the opportunity by the organizing committee to share my research about hepatotoxin in camel meat. Yeah? So as a food technologies, we need to consider the pool. Yeah? When we venture like 10 years into the industry, either camel meat or camel milk, but if we disregard the safety aspect of the food commodity, we will have problems, because we venture in millions of dollars, maybe for the past 10 years, it boosts, but because of one incident, we probably will kill the whole industry. Yeah? So that is why it should be go concurrently together with the innovation that we are having. Yeah? So today I'm going to share with you all about the findings and my personal experience. I know there are a lot of young researchers, postgraduates in the room, so basically allow me to share my research work. I always treat research as not really presenting the data, because I take research as a way to cultivate myself. So you will see a lot of human touch elements in my presentation later. So allow me to give a little bit of advertisement about my university. It is the largest university in Malaysia, and we have 34 campuses scattered around in Malaysia. And currently we are having like 200 students in the system. So any professors here, if next time you all are having grants or research opportunities, please do send the invitation. We have a big pool of students probably interested in doing this kind of research. Yeah. And though I'm coming from Malaysia, we do not have camel in Malaysia. I'm just being given the opportunity to work with the top-notch researcher from the University of Queensland, like Prof. Rafat, Prof. Mary, Selina, Judy. We are all working together. So we are not just talking about the data, but this experience was a valuable experience for me and, of course, together with my team members. Yeah? So I will come with the first questions. Yeah? Does natural always mean good? A lot of consumers, or maybe some of us here, will having a mindset, human cultivated food, sometimes we call it as like, yeah, we have this human touch, and some people like to get the food from the wild. Yeah? They said it is more natural, it is organic, maybe, yeah? But is it true? Yeah, previously I have this kind of belief also. Natural is always good. If I want to take the bird nest, if I want to take the herbs, if I want to take the honey, I always go for the natural. But after learning about food safety, it seems like that is not the case. Yeah, because when you are talking about food safety, when they are grown in nature, when you are getting them from the wild, there are all sorts of possibilities that you need to address, like what I was quite impressed by the presentation by Prof. Kishu yesterday. Yeah, everyone was talking about the genetic modification, about how to increase the yield, but there are tons of diseases still having the problems out there need to be resolved. And from my research work that I'm going to share with you all today is just one of those problems out there, but I'm going to unveil it in depth and share the experience together with all of you. So in order to let you all to have the context over here, there are now more than 300,000 feral camels in Australia. If maybe some of the participants can recall, Prof. Rafat shared about the statistical figure. In the early of 2010, the culling process, or in the layman term, killing process, take place in Australia. Like here, in Sahara, in Argentina, probably people take camel as like a baby, yeah, taking good care of it. But in Australia, people take it differently, take them as the pest, and thinking of eliminating them from the center of Australia. So the camel meat is the food commodity for Australian, and sometimes they will be exported, including Malaysia during the Eid celebration, especially those from the rich family. They will import Australian camel meat in order to serve their relatives and friends. So Indospicine contaminated commercial camel meat has causing the severe hepatic disease among the animals. So hepatic disease means liver, yeah? It is causing the liver disease amongst the animals. So when I started this research in 2011, there was case reported, which is the hepatotoxicosis in dogs consuming a diet of camel meat contaminated with Indospicine, yeah? And then that is why the project started. And I flew all over from Malaysia to Australia in order to join the research group to look into, to uncover what are the problems that they are facing. Yeah? But 10 years down the road, again, when the awareness was there, people will tend to avoid to consume the camels or try to minimize the risk the camel meat or the horse meat obtained from the center of Australia. But maybe this information start fading off, and people start, the new generation, or maybe the new group of people or business people who are getting into the business, they start forgetting about the risk, and they start harvesting the meat in the central region or the northern region, and it caused 60 of the dogs affected by liver disease, yeah, in the Victoria states. So you all have heard about Indospicine just now. Maybe most of you here, you do not have any idea about what Indospicine is all about. It is a unique plant toxin, and it is non-proteinogenic amino acid produced only by Indigofera ligum plants. Yeah? If you look at the chemical structure, number one is Indospicine, and number two is arginine. And arginine is the amino acid, essential amino acid, which is very important for human tissue development. But for Indospicine, it is the analog of it. By changing the molecular structure a bit, by removing the nitrogen and hydrogen, it causes it turn into something which is toxic. Yeah? So this is the plant. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this plant. It is not very attractive, but it is prevalent in the central of Australia. Yeah? Another one is Indigofera spicata. Both of them are having high concentration of Indigofera Indospicine concentration. Yeah? And then probably some of you do not do not know the distribution of these Indigofera plants, but if we lay the distribution, overlay it with the regions with high density of ferrocamels, you will know the possibilities of the camels eating those plants. And according to some scientists, they claim that these Indigofera plants actually is favored food for camel. Maybe some of the audience think that this is a localized problem, but if we look into the distribution of Indigofera spicata, actually it is widespread across the Africa continent, including in the southern part of America. And this is only Indigofera spicata distribution. And if we combine Indigofera linnae, Indigofera collutea, linifolia, and the spread or the distribution of these species will be even wider. So I would consider if we are dealing with ferrocamels or the camels roaming in the wild, the risk of having this Indospicine contaminated camel meat will be significantly higher. So let us have a look at the susceptibility of the animals. In general, listed in ascending order as follows. Started with the horse and chicken, they are less susceptible. And then we have the second category, guinea pig, rat, mice, goat, rabbit, and cattle. And then the third, sheep and dog, so far, is the most susceptible animals of all. But if you're asking me, how about human being? I have no idea because there is no case being reported at the moment. But because the dogs are having a severe reactions, I do believe it is necessary for us to having some precaution over here when we are having this kind of chemical compounds. Yeah? So in general, I would like to say that these problems is not only the problem faced by the camels. That means the camel ingests the Indigofera plants which contain Indospicine, which may develop liver disease. But at the same time, when they're accumulated in the camel meat tissue, or maybe in the milk, or maybe in the urine, when it is there, and then other animals or human beings consume it, we are subjected to the secondary poisoning. So in order to unveil the situation in the problem faced by Australians, so we look into the surveillance data by collecting the in situ camel meat samples. 99 camels, we obtained the samples from Central of Australia under the cull exercise under the Australian Feral Camel Management Project in Central Australia. And we have collected the rump muscle. And then you can see here, most of the chemical concentration for Indospicine will be at the range of 0.1 to 3.5. Even though there are only like 4 samples contain higher concentration of Indospicine in the meat sample, but it is of the scientific community concern because 2.1 milligram per kilogram of fresh weight of Indospicine in pet food caused serious hepatic disease in dogs after prolonged dietary exposure. So pay a little bit of attention on the range of 0.1 to 0.5, where there are 42 camel meat samples contain Indospicine. Yeah? But because of this, it triggers us to think about, okay, in situ samples collected from Central of Australia, the concentration is relatively high. How about ex situ samples from the abattoir? So we again go to the abattoir in order to collect the samples, but this we have a precondition where we allow the camels to browse an Indigofera-free paddock for 2 weeks and then were fasted for 24 hours before being slaughtered in different time. But we noticed that the samples we have collected, we put into the lab and analyzed the Indospicine concentration. It seems like only most of the sample will be below 0.05 milligram per kilogram, the concentration of Indospicine. So it triggers us to think about why the samples collected from the in situ site compared to the ex situ site, there is a huge difference. So that is where the journey begins for us to look into the explanation of it. Yeah? So we run the toxicokinetic study by feeding the camels with Indigofera spicata. Of course, I think if we are talking about this study with Prof. Weil, probably he may not be very happy with it. Yeah, but toxicokinetic study, we recruited like 6 camels. Yeah, and then we feed them with certain concentration of Indospicine present in the plant, and then we observe the weight. And it seems like after feeding them continuously, when we were weighing the camels, the weight dropped. And after cessation, the weight increased. Yeah? And on day 33, we stopped the feeding process. And on day 32, we send them to euthanize them and collect the samples, pathological samples from them. And I would like to thank, special thanks to Diane, because without her help, it is not possible for us to carry out the camel research over there, especially for the feeding trial. Yeah? Maybe some of you can recognize this is Prof. Rafat taking the blood from the jugular vein for the plasma analysis. And then we have this biopsy sample from the rump near the tail part to collect them over a period of time. And we run the analysis using the UPLC MSMS coupled with SIDA, the stable isotope dilution assay, which is sort of like a golden standard for Indospicine quantitation. And we have developed the method and validated the method. So by having this comparison, we can see that the plasma concentration of Indospicine sort of like plateau after a while, but the accumulation of Indospicine in the camel meat increased consistently until the day we stop feeding the camel with the Indigofera plants. Yeah? And if you look at the graph, the terminal elimination of Indospicine, the half-life of it is about 15 to 18 days, which means if you want to get the concentration in the meat or the plasma, half of the original concentration, you need to cease the Indigofera intake or Indospicine intake for 15 to 18 days. Yeah? This experiment explains why the ex situ sample we collected from the abattoir is relatively lower compared to the camel meat we collect from the in situ. Yeah? Again, from the toxicokinetic study, the Indospicine concentration of necropsized camel tissue from day 32, camel feeding experiment incorporated with Indigofera spicata. The pancreas concentration is the highest, followed by liver, muscle, heart, and kidney. Yeah. After the study, we have made sort of like a conclusion, factors affecting Indospicine levels in camel meat, maybe due to the Indigofera availability, where it is seasonal from the data that we have produced, and we have published a paper out of it by collecting the Indigofera linnae in different period of time. Even though the same plant with different period of time, it will produce different concentrations of Indospicine. Yeah? As low as 200 milligram per kilogram up till 2000 milligram per kilogram. And then the grazing pattern, the duration and in the intensity of Indigofera consumption, as you all can see, when the camels start eating Indigofera plants, the Indospicine concentration move up, but if you cease, it will drop. So it depends on the patterns they are browsing or grazing these plants. Yeah? Camel physiology, if you look at the toxicokinetic data, is the same. The standard deviation for the Indospicine concentration in camel meat and the plasma is quite big. Yeah? So we believe that this individual variation in metabolism and accumulation will affect the Indospicine level in the camel meat. Yeah, of course, another one is the environmental conditions, where the rainfall plant growth affecting the Indigofera prevalence, because during the drought season, most of the Indigofera will sort of like in the dormant stage and not widely available. But during the rainfalls, first rainfall after the drought season, it will flourish, yeah? And that is the time the camel sometimes will go and browse those plants. And then we have, because I mean, a chat with Prof. Rafat previously, it seems like the microbiome in the gut of camel actually quite strong. They can do a lot of miraculous things by degrading a lot of toxins. So we have a hypothesis, maybe Indospicine can be degraded by the gut microorganism. Yeah? So we have conducted an in vitro study by subjecting the Indospicine plants, Indigofera plants, with the incubation period of 48 hours at 39 degrees Celsius. We noticed that the camel foregut microorganism has the ability to degrade nearly 95% of Indospicine. But it doesn't answer the reason why it is still accumulating in the meat and the plasma at the end. So we have the sort of like a pre-conclusion saying that, yeah, maybe, yeah, 48 hours is sufficient to degrade Indospicine, but the passage, yeah, of the ingesta may be bypassing the ruminal digestive system and then leak out and then being absorbed by the intestine. Yeah? So that is why it is being accumulated in the tissue and the plasma. And this experiment actually is something which is beyond our expectation. A little bit of drama in my research project, the ex vivo study, because after a discussion with Prof. Mary previously, from the literature reported and from her very own personal experience, Indospicine is very, very stable. It is very stable in the high temperature. It is very stable in the acidic conditions. And it is sort of like impossible to break it. Yeah? So when I was performing this experiment, I was thinking of, oh, it's okay. I proposed the experimental design just for the sake of validating. Yeah? That means I do the experiment just to sort of like proving the previous researchers they are correct. So just for the sake of reporting. But before performing the experiment, I looked into the literature and we found that as a food technologist, of course, we don't just to explain the problem, we are trying our very best to solve the problem as well. So I found out that it is quite common for in food industry, people using sodium bicarbonate, which is a very common food chemicals utilized in bakeries and bread making. So I said, yeah, why not we put a little bit of sodium bicarbonate, which is 0.05%, only a little bit, yeah, put in there, and subject it to the treatment, yeah, for the Indospicine and the camel meat contain Indospicine. And our hypothesis was it should be stable, yeah. But after the experiment, when I first shown the data to Prof. Mary at that time, it seems like in the alkaline condition, the Indospicine was broken down. So it was like a bit dramatic because it defied the traditional understanding about Indospicine. So after a long discussion, she requests me to repeat the experiment. That is the only experiment I have to repeat it again to confirm what we have done is correct. Yeah? So as you all can see from the data, not only the Indospicine was breaking down after the treatment under the alkaline condition, we have to further quantify and identify what are the new chemical compounds being broken down into. Yeah? So that means additional job in the research. We have to identify what are the compounds, and at the end, by using the UPLC QTOF, time of flight, we managed to identify those new compounds derived from Indospicine, aminopimolamic acid and aminopimolic acid. And of course, if you ask me, from the food technology point of view, further investigation need to be carried out because we are not sure the new compound, are they less toxic or are they more toxic? But I said, that's it for this time. Maybe in the future, some scientists need to further investigate about this matter because we are running out of time. Yeah? So now we have a more comprehensive understanding about this toxin and the problems. So we have proposed several mitigation strategies. First, the monitoring program can be done by regular testing of camel meats for Indospicine. I'm not sure whether this has been done in the Africa continent or the Southern America continent. Yeah, and then holding period from the study, it seems like it is one of the very effective way. By holding them for a while before slaughtering them, will significantly reduce the Indospicine concentration in the camel meat. And then the processing technique, even if we have the problem, the thermo-alkaline treatment may be the option that can use to treat the camel meat contaminated by Indospicine. And of course, the consumer's education, we need to raise awareness about the potential risks so that in the future, when you are into the industry, you are aware of this is the problem and there are ways to resolve it, yeah? And not increasing the risk, but we are trying to reduce the risk. So in conclusion and recommendation, the food standard, we need to develop the guideline for Indospicine in meat products and the livestock. We need to implement the mandatory screening for high-risk area. In Australia, it will be from the center of Australia, but in the Africa continent, maybe some researchers need to identify where are the high-risk area. The meat coming from that area may need to be screened. And then, of course, the meat trade, if we are not screening it, like Alina shared previously, in European region, we want free from everything, free from diseases, free from toxins, free from poisons. So those are the things that we need to look into also. Yeah. Last, the risk communication through this kind of platform. I do believe if we are able to increase the understanding and awareness, we will be able to reduce the risk. Last but not least, Prof. Rafat asked me to give a take-home remark. I would say, as a food technologist, we can have a bunch of checklists talking about how to push this industry forward. But at the same time, don't forget the food safety aspect. We need to put them into the list, into the checklist, to ensure that the products we produce are sustainable and safe to be consumed. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eddie. So we have room for just one or two questions maximum. Yes, please.
Thank you, Doctor from Malaysia. I will say you apa kabar.
Bye, terima kasih.
This is all I know in Malay. So I have two questions.
Yeah.
First question about the risk for human consuming this kind of meat or liver infested by this toxicity. If we cook or we don't cook this product well or very well, what will happen to the consumer? That's the first question. Second question is, you know, we have here, it was reported to us by breeders and herders that there is a worm in Acacia radiana. When it is used it is harvested by she camels, sometimes it induces abortion, and then the milk suckled by the young calf, this will make the end of his life, go to mortality. These two questions. But I would like to, if you, by your permission, to make another comment, but I will do it in French. At the end of this, à la fin de ces 3 journées, nous avons appris beaucoup de choses, surtout nous, disons des scientifiques, beaucoup de choses sur vraiment la technologie la plus avancée, en matière donc, de recherche sur la génétique, sur la qualité du lait, sur beaucoup de choses qui sont liées directement à la génétique et au goût de lait. Mais on aurait aimé dans l'avenir avoir la même chose pour la nutrition des animaux qui constitue le problème majeur donc, de la production sur le terrain dans ce pays. Deuxièmement, également, on ne doit pas oublier de vue que les camelins au Maroc ne sont pas dans un troupeau en général, il n'y a pas uniquement que les camelins. Il n'y a pas uniquement que les camelins. Donc il y a aussi un troupeau de petits ruminants. Et on ne peut pas dire à l'éleveur uniquement de se concentrer sur le camelin et de laisser les petits ruminants. Parce que les petits ruminants, ils constituent la trésorerie de l'éleveur. Le petit ruminant, il peut être vendu après 6 mois. Donc, à chaque fois qu'on veut parler des camelins, il faut également associer à ça la production ovino-caprine. Et on sait que dans ces 3 régions du sud du Maroc, les caprins représentent 83% des effectifs. Et les camelins ont seulement 17%. Donc, dans l'avenir, j'aurais aimé que les collègues qui nous ont invités sur cette précieuse conférence take into account this kind of remark, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just 2 questions. The last one in French was a comment, so.
All right. For the first question, I think we do not have the clinical data at the moment, so it is hard to say whether human beings are very susceptible to this hepatotoxin or not. But at the same time, I've seen a brief report talking about the cell line study using the liver cell to study subjected it to the Indospicine. It seems the reaction was relatively mild compared to dogs. Yeah, but of course, this in vitro study is still at the very early stage to make a solid conclusion whether a human being is really susceptible to Indospicine or not. Yeah. For the second question, I don't.
Second question, it was about the worms. Yeah. It was about some kind of worm that lives on the trees and consumed by camels and causes abortion and maybe has effects on me. Do you have any?
Do you have an idea about that?
All right. Maybe I will leave this to the camelid expert to answer. I have no idea about that thing.
Okay, thank you very much. So one last question, brief question, please.
Yeah, it's the question. Thank you, Professor Idi. The question, as Professor Monsef told us, the camels in the region is based on grassland. So your presentation is about the toxicity of indigo fera spicata that give us this
Indigofera spicata.
Indospicata is
Yeah.
this hepatotoxin.
Yeah.
So what do you think about using conditioned aversion to induce using alternative to lithium of chloride to induce aversion, a conditioned aversion to this toxicity, to this toxic plant, so you can then resolve the problem of hepatotoxin and save the liver of the consumer. The concentration is about this conditioned aversion, if you know. Thank you.
You didn't understand the question? So I think he proposed a solution using what kind of product?
Other plants to
No.
sort of like flush out? No.
Please, répétez en français, s'il vous plaît. Je vais traduire, parce que j'ai pas compris moi non plus. Rapidement.
D'accord. Donc la question, c'est sur. Est-ce que vous m'entendez là?
Oui, oui, oui.
Ah oui, merci. Donc l'étude scientifique était sur donc la toxicité de cette plante au niveau des parcours au niveau de l'Australie. Donc on ne sait pas s'il se trouve au niveau des parcours du Maroc, mais est-ce que donc parmi donc les suggestions d'utiliser une aversion conditionnée pour que les camelins ne mangent pas cette plante toxique. Donc parmi les solutions, c'est l'aversion conditionnée or conditioned aversion. For example, we use it in sheep. Utilisons cette technique dans les ovins pour induire une aversion conditionnée contre l'olive, les feuilles d'olive. Donc, cette technique, elle se peut utiliser pour éviter que les camelins ne mangent pas cette plante toxique.
Okay, thank you.
Merci.
So I will translate. He just suggesting to use an aversion way so you can prevent camels to eat this kind of plants. Is it possible to do it in Australia?
Again, I think this. I think this question also I need to leave it to the animal
the
scientists
chemical,
about that.
please, the chemical compound is the alternative of lithium chloride.
Using
Thank you.
lithium chloride.
Yeah.
You can continue the discussion later because time is catching up with us. I should thank
you,
Mr.
thank you,
Ely.
everyone.
Please have a clap for him and call for Professor Jane Collins to give us a talk about genetic diversity and conservation of Peruvian guanaco and Vicuña. You have also 25 minutes. Thank you very much.
Hello? Yes, fine.
Is this to move forward and just point it there?
The pointer.
Yeah. The green one is forward.
Fine. Okay, well, first of all, many thanks to the organizers of the Congress for the invitation. It's always very important to have contact with colleagues, and even if we're dealing with camels, these are New World camels that we work with. And so we're going to have a change of gears here, and I'm going to talk about the wild South American camelids, specifically the subspecies that exist in Peru, which are Vicuña mensalis, the Vicuña, and Lama guanicoi caxilensis, the guanaco.
Close to your mouth.
Okay.
Away from this one.
No,
No, you can use this.
okay. We'll see further on in the talk that and how these relate to the other subspecies. First of all, when you're studying an animal, I think it's very important to know where they come from and how they're related to other species. Just looking at the animal is not enough. So very rapidly, we'll go through the taxonomic classification. There are two genus, Lama and Vicuña, each of which is subdivided into subspecies. It's subdivided into a domestic and a wild species. Lama glama is the llama, Lama guanicoi is the guanaco, Vicuña pacos is the alpaca, and Vicuña is the Vicuña. Where did they come from? How did they get there? Well, just like the Old World camels, the South American camelids originated in North America. And they both migrated to their current distribution at the end of the Pliocene and the beginning of the Pleistocene, about 3.3 million years ago. Camelus was the last common ancestor, and then we have Camelus to Camelus ferus, and Vicuña to the Vicuña and guanaco. Hemiocania is the form that migrated to South America. During the late Pliocene, we know from studies of paleontology, it may have been Hemiocenia macrocephala. They migrated 3.3 million years ago and settled initially in what is today the province of Buenos Aires in the lowlands east of the Andes. Shortly after Hemiocenia arrived, it gave origin to llama and subsequently to Vicuña, both in the lowlands east of the Andes. During the late Pleistocene and Holocene, there were constant climatic changes, shifts from dry, cold climates to warm, humid climates, which greatly influenced the distribution of vegetation and ultimately the distribution of llama and vicuña. Llama and vicuña both moved into the highlands and into Patagonia. Meanwhile, all of the mega mammals and 80% of the large mammals became extinct before the end of the Holocene. This is a cladogram study of fossils, which shows the relationship, and I don't know how the pointer works, but you can see macrocephala as the baseline, giving rise to Llama castanaldi, which is a fossil form in South America, Llama guanicoi, and Vicuña vicuña. Now, that, no, I'm fine. Sorry, the slide I just showed you is based on the analysis of fossil forms, and we're getting more and more interesting information available to us, particularly from the study of ancient DNA. And we have a study that shows that there, whoops, sorry, where's the pointer? This one? No, it's a point.
Yeah, it's point, but it will not on a white one.
Oh, it's not going to work. Okay. So we have a study of Pleistocene remains, which you see in red, and of current populations, which are in black. And what this study showed was that there was a genus, a species of Vicuña, which was erroneously called Llama gracilis, but it is Vicuña gracilis, which became extinct, and also a species of Patagonian guanaco that became extinct. And how these species may be related to the current living animals, we don't know. It just goes to show how complicated the history of evolution of these animals was. And just to complicate it further, we have more analysis of ancient DNA of guanaco and vicuña bones, which are dated 3,360 to 2,370 BP from sites in northern Chile in the area of Tulan. And this study indicates that there was not one, but two separate species of guanacos surviving at that time. And they then show that one of these species became extinct and one survives today. They also showed something we'll touch on later, significant loss of Vicuña genetic variability from the early formative to the present. So it's complicated understanding the history. However, in May of this year, a study based on complete genome sequences of guanacos from across their entire distribution has helped to clarify much of the history. It is shown, for example, that the two subspecies, Lamaguanicoi coxilensis and Lamaguanicoi guanicoi, appeared around 800,000 BP. And it documents the history of evolution of these subspecies. They both underwent a very strong population expansion until around 200,000 BP. But from that point on, the two subspecies followed a different history. The northern subspecies reached its maximum around 70,000 before present, and this was followed by a very gradual decline without any traumatic events in terms of population. The southern subspecies, however, suffered a long-term population decrease, but in contrast, it was marked by strong genetic bottlenecks between 100,000 and 22,000 BP, which results or led to a different genetic composition and expression of the southern species. The result is clear that Lamaguanicoi coxilensis has much higher levels of genetic variability than the guanicoi guanicoi. This is the map from the study I mentioned. You can see the northern distribution of coxilensis, which is related to the highlands, and the southern distribution, which is primarily in Patagonia into northwest Argentina and northern Chile. The difference between the subspecies is that the northern subspecies is very small in population, and it is adapted to very dry desert-like conditions. The southern guanaco, however, has very large numbers and lives in an area of steppe vegetation, which is much more lush. So it's quite different. I'm not going to go into social organization and other factors. As far as the Peruvian guanaco goes, we studied the genetic variability, and we found that there is no inbreeding. The heterozygosity is very good, all above 0.5 for all of the populations. So it's fine. Theoretically, you should be able to move guanacos from one area to another to increase population size. However, there are only 3,800, 4,000, at most 5,000 guanacos in Peru of this subspecies. And the government has declared, based on the low number, the guanaco to be in critical danger of extinction. Now we'll look at the vicuña, which has a very different history. The vicuña is classified by the IUCN as of least concern. And it is because of this classification that the shearing that Bibiana talked about can take place. However, despite these huge numbers, all of the countries are far behind in terms of census, and we don't truly know what the exact situation is. However, if we go back and look at the past, we can see on this map the distribution of guanaco, of Vicuña, which originated in the Pampas lowlands. They are in purple on the map. Vicuña gracilis, the one that was supposedly extinct by the ancient DNA studies. In fact, we have as many as 10 reports of sightings of Vicuña that could only be gracilis in the Darwin Straits in extreme southern Patagonia. And these are from 1847, 1830, so on. So again, just another indication of how complicated the history is and why we need to look at all different lines of events. The climatic change I mentioned that caused the current distribution, which you can see for the Vicuña in the green stippling, occurred during the Pleistocene and Holocene. The earliest date we have at high elevation is 22,220 years before present at a site in Peru located at 3,800 meters above sea level. The two subspecies are Vicuña mensalis and Vicuña. You can see in the photo the differences in color. The northern subspecies is darker, has less white spread across the body, and has a large bib of white hair on the chest. The southern subspecies is light tan and has a much wider distribution of white fiber on its body. The adaptations of the two, in a sense, reflect the opposite of the situation of the guanaco. The Peruvian Vicuña lives in moist or wet puna at elevations from 3,500 to 4,500 meters above sea level. It's an area that, as I said, is wet. There's always good vegetation available. The southern subspecies is adapted to an area that's called the dry diagonal. It's an area that is so dry. There were no glaciers formed in the area during the Pleistocene, despite the elevation, but there was no rain, no snow, nothing. So here you can see the two differences. When we look at the genetics of the Vicuña, we can see that the Vicuña has gone through genetic bottlenecks, and this actually, I'm talking specifically about the Peruvian subspecies. The first bottleneck occurred at a time or during a time that has documented exponential human population growth. And it also covers a time when there was a shift, first to specialized hunting with increased management of wild populations and eventual domestication of the Vicuña. The earliest evidence of domestication of the Vicuña comes from 7,000 years ago from the central Andes highlands of Peru. The second bottleneck, which affected the Vicuña, began at the time of the Spanish conquest. And I cannot emphasize how greatly the impact of the conquest affected the South American camelids. We know that from colonial tax documents, the South American camelid population disappeared. 90% of the animals disappeared within 100 years of the conquest. And not only 90% of the animals, but also 90% of the human population. It's inconceivable if you stop and think about it. And that roadblock has been very significant in terms of the current situation of these animals. It continues today. So anyhow, the Vicuña has gone through two significant bottlenecks, both of which, let it be said, were related to human action. During a genetic bottleneck, what happened? What happened to the Vicuña populations? They would have suffered a drastic reduction in population size. They would have had lowered reproduction rates, increased inbreeding, and loss of genetic diversity, all of which are contributing factors to the extinction vortex. And we can see this history very clearly in the genetics of present-day vicuñas, because their populations suffer from inbreeding and reduced genetic variability. The vicuña population in Peru is subdivided into 4 groups, each of which has reduced genetic variability and each of which is different from the other. These are the statistics on genetic variability for populations that we've studied in Peru. You can see that the bulk of the populations have very low expected and observed heterozygosity. And there is really only one population which is marginally okay. That's Pampagaleris, which we have 3 different sampling times from 1968 up to fairly recently. I would add that the Galeris population, because of a mange epidemic, has recently dropped from 15,000 to 6. So we have now another new probable genetic bottleneck. These are the 5 different areas which correspond to conservation units, conservation management, which are 3 in Peru exclusively, 1 on the southern border of Peru and northern Chile, and then the dry diagonal, the Vicuña subspecies. The 5 populations defined by DNA analysis correspond to conservation management units. And there should be no movement of animals between these units until further research is conducted. This was an edict of the Andean Convenio de la Vicuña, and it was recommended by other international organizations. However, since 2001, when we did that first study, no controls are in place. Vicuñas are simply moved from here to there to anywhere where they feel they want to go. There's very little concern in many cases for the well-being of the vicuña. They round them up to shear them, and they separate animals, put them in trucks, leave them overnight, and maybe eventually take them where they're going. So this is not good. Also, in addition to them being moved all over the place, the idea that is current in Peru is that the vicuña should be raised in captivity. The government refuses to use the word captivity. They call it semi-captivity, arguing that they leave holes in the fences. But the vicuña is sedentary, so having a hole in a fence isn't going to do a thing in terms of preserving the species. So this whole idea that the species should be raised as if it were a domestic animal is really tragic, and conservation of the biological integrity of the species has not been prioritized. However, DNA will out you if you think you can get away with it. Here we can show analysis of DNA, the impact in red of prolonged activity. More than 30 years of an enclosed population in Puno, which should have a color distribution like that of number 6, exactly next to it. The whole genome of the animals in captivity has been altered. These animals should never be released. They should never be allowed to breed, but there's a law in Peru that you cannot kill or castrate a vicuña, so it's very complicated. And then we have the evidence of an unauthorized transfer of vicuñas from Conservation Unit 3, which is number 13, blue and yellow with a little red, to Conservation Unit 1, which is predominantly green, as you can see in number 9, and the result is another new genome, which is a product of human activity, not natural selection. So, the present situation of the vicuña needs to be understood in its historical past, beginning with its arrival in South America 3.3 million years ago. It seems highly contradictory that the Peruvian vicuña should be classified as least concern when it's suffering from all of the indications of a vortex of extinction. However, the IUCN and the Peruvian government classify the vicuña as least concern. The guanaco, on the other hand, as we've seen, could have movement of animals from one area to another because of its genetic situation. However, the government has declared it in critical danger of extinction, which hopefully gives it some measure of protection. The IUCN needs to be advised. They need to know that simply looking at the number of animals of a species living in an area is not sufficient to adequately plan for conservation of the species. We've done a comparative study of guanaco and vicuña in Peru and have drawn up recommendations for management plans. We know that Vicuña and guanaco in Peru cannot be managed in the same way. They need separate management plans, and we tried to set out the basis for doing this. Whoops. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Jane, for this enlightening presentation and for this history, giving us the history of the small camelids. And I hope this wake-up call could be heard and that we as a scientist could do something about this. So we have room for some questions. Yes, Pamela?
Thank you very much. And it's always fascinating that I can so learn much from you. And my question is the regular hybridization between the two subspecies for the vicuñas, within the vicuñas, and also within the guanacos, or are they really very much separated, these two subspecies populations?
Geographically, they're separate, and the dating is 800,000 years ago by ADNA to determine the separation.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation. Really, I learned a lot. My question is about the plan of conservation. You put a lot of efforts. You put lots of efforts, governments and researchers, on the in situ conservation. And you said in your presentation that you have now planned perhaps for ex situ preservation. Do you plan to use some biological techniques as embryo conservation or oocyte conservation as ex situ plan for this nice subspecies? Thank you very much.
Plans for conservation. The Peruvian subspecies need separate plans. The Patagonian guanaco, which is hundreds of thousands of animals, is actually harvested. Meat is produced for sale. There's conservation is very different from the southern guanacos subspecies, guanicoi, and the northern one. I don't know if that answers your question, but what we did in the article was to outline the differences between the subspecies in Peru and point out what would be the way they should be put under conservation action.
There is no other questions? So thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your lunch break. See you at 2:30, I think. So 1 hour later. Thank you very much. Okay. Please, there is an announcement. Please, please, please. There is a photo group. Please, for everyone. Now. تصويرة يا جماعة بالعربي. جماعة توا عندهم تصويرة لهنا. Photo group. Please. Photo group, yes. Outside.